There.
Goes up. Here we go. Picture perfect. All right, welcome, welcome, welcome. Anybody who's here, everybody who's here, all the bodies, everybody wants somebody, wants somebody to love.
And I have ad break.
Nice.
Double check that our desktop audio is going through too.
Yes, I will definitely do that.
Because we have someone in chat saying it is quiet. Fucking commercials. Well. Oh, I can't scroll. uh, that's 3 commercials in a row. And you're muted. Yeah. We're having some audio issues real quick. So just give us 1 second.
Never mind, I was muted on purpose. Ha ha. What a silly Billy I am.
Yes, on purpose.
Yes, no, I really was muted on purpose because I wanted to be able to hear the audio.
Oh. All right. So, Jeff, what are we doing today?
Okay, cool, cool, cool. Glad that we got the audio figured out. Please do let us know if something happens with that, because we would hate to have something going wrong. Um, Today, as the title says, if you clicked on this video, this stream, you should know at this point. Today we're doing character building here on No Dice. That's right, we're back again for the bi-weekly show No Dice, which features me, Jeff, the Twitch master here on Twitch for Torch the Tavern. That's got so many T's, there's no way it can't. Um, and as I said, I am the Twitch master here for Torch the Tavern, and what we do here at No Dice is we just talk about things. There's no D&D here, except for in the conversation. We don't roll any dice, and that's why it is what it is. So today, the thing we're going to talk about is character building. We're going to go over it top to bottom, bottom to top. We're going to have a nice long chittery chat about it. Basically, giving you what we do as people who do it for viewers for some reason, and what you can do at home uh, if you don't. And we'd also love to hear some of the stuff that you do. If you have anything you want to throw in while we're talking, just send it in the chat. And both me and my co-host for the day, Ulvin, are doing our best to keep an eye on the chat. So we'll definitely talk to you and see where things are at and where they're going, and so on and so forth. Uh, but as I said, we're going to go over everything. As you may notice, we have a character sheet right here in the middle of the screen, and we will actually fill that out uh, for y'all. Kind of like I feel like we're gonna do it as we go along. So as we get to something we discuss, um, we'll address it on the character sheet and fill it out and have some fun. Hopefully, this will end up helping you in your characters in one way, shape, or form or another.
So, what edition are we doing this character sheet through?
So we are very specifically doing the character sheet through 5th edition. With that being said, that's only because it's the biggest and most popular edition currently.
Hold
Uh,
on 1 sec. You need to turn your personal mic up a bit.
okay. Here we go. Hopefully that's better. Here, I'll also scoot the mic in a little bit. Now you can see it a little bit in the screen. See right here. Boink. Um, Hopefully that is improved. Connectivity issues that are surprising. For sure. Well, hopefully those issues resolve themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. Good.
I can
Looks like the
hear.
audio is up. The connectivity issues, I just blame on your internet CD. Whether it's our fault or not, I always blame it on your internet.
Fantastic. Yes.
Uh,
If we can blame it on somebody else, just take the
oh,
opportunity.
hey,
I currently am. I think I'm going to blame it on Russia
give me
because Russia's
1
been
second.
really fucking up across the board anyway. So, you know, why not? If it can be their fault, it's their fault.
I was so preoccupied with getting everything else set up, I forgot to get my setup up. So yeah, so 5th edition, because it
Yes.
is the most popular.
It is the biggest and most popular currently. So this is a 5th edition character sheet. But a lot of what we do go over today will not be 5th edition or even Dungeons and Dragons specific. We're going to talk about building a character. Not necessarily building your Dungeons and Dragons character, though we will also be discussing that. But building a character. Because, it is one of the biggest parts of being a player at a role-playing table now. With that being said, there's no wrong way to do it. I'm going to go right out the gate.
Yes, there is. The wrong way is not making one.
Fair. I'm going to come right out the gate and say there is no wrong way to build a character. You can always take whatever choice or option you want, go whichever way feels best for you. If you're the kind of person that starts with a name or a background, or if you're the type of person that doesn't write anything until after they've played 5 sessions about the character. Whatever you're doing is what you're doing, and if it works for you, it works for you. But we're going to give you a little bit of perspective from our point of views, people who have done it for a little while, whether that's NPCs as characters, which are still characters that we have to build, or player characters that we play. And as we crack into this, I want to start with a very important question for Ulven.
Oh no.
How do you start when you build a character?
Start what? I always start with class. I always start with class because I don't base the character off the race. I base the character off the class, which is a weird concept and a weird vibe, but it's how I've always done it. In particular, I always go there. Well, I've always played a martial class. Might want to try magic caster, which is part of the reason why I'm playing a cleric, which I haven't played a cleric in like 10, 11 years. So it's entertaining. But I start with the class, and then I go to race, and then I do stat rolls.
Okay.
That's how I started.
Yeah. Now,
I don't worry about background, alignment. I don't worry about the name. None of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And that makes a lot of sense. Some people start with stats, and that seems silly to me because you could kind of move your stats around. Don't get me wrong.
If that's what your DM allows.
Fair. If you roll 6 straight stats and that's what your DM wants you to do,
well, you got to remember, first, second edition.
Wild.
Yeah, first, second edition. That's kind of how it was. Is you rolled, and down the line was what you got. So if you want to play a class, you had to make sure your main stats matched up to what its minimum stat requirement was.
I mean, I do remember minimum stat requirements, but from the way that I played second edition, you could still move your stats around.
Oh, yeah. That was a DM thing.
Yeah. But hefty as that is, makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense. Not
CD
doing it
CD's
based on
out
stats.
there saying class for what he wants to play, race to complement the style he wants to play. The class then rolls. So class, race, rolls. Yep.
Yeah.
And again, everyone has the way they want to do it, but the right way. Class, race, rolls.
Everybody has their own way. I think that I think that you take a pretty a pretty common approach to it. I think a lot of people do that, right? They go, "What class do I want to play?" Then they decide the race because
S-
often people are looking to match up their race to their class.
So for most of my tables that I've been a DM, at least for people who it's not like their first game, most of the not I would say not veterans, but the mid-level players, they actually go rolls first.
Rolls first. That's
Rolls
wild.
first. They get the rolls out of the way, then they pick a class that then class then race or race in class. Yeah, I've had most of my players have always done rolls first.
That seems strange. I don't think I've ever done rolls first. Like I've rolled stat. Don't get me wrong. I guess I have rolled stats first before, but that wasn't. It didn't always seem like the first step for me. Um, and as I say, I think a lot of people do end up doing class first because it makes sense to choose a class and then choose a race that has bonuses that will help you in that class. This is the logical approach. This is how it's meant to be done to a certain extent. You know, for the casual and the min maxer alike, this makes a lot of sense. But I think one of the things that I do personally that's a little different is I try to almost do them both at the same time. Uh, because I don't I don't like doing a a race based on a class or a class based on a race, however you want to do it. Like, some people will be like, "Oh, well, I want to do a dwarf. And what's best to be a dwarf? A fighter." And
Yeah, because it gives me that plus to Constitution, or the some of the races that if you look if for Pathfinder First Edition, some of the races got bonuses depending on the class they were,
sure.
and which you didn't see right out the gate most of the time. It was usually every 4 levels you'd see a bonus to something. But when it comes to min maxing, that's what a lot of people look at. For me, it's do I want to go with the tried and true, or do I want to play something new and weird?
Yeah.
Mind Flayer Paladins.
uh yeah, I mean I'm often the guy that's new and weird. Anybody who's been at a table with me will tell you that I've almost never played a core race on purpose. And I
Fat.
always go for something that seems a bit off kilter, as Ulvin can attest. Um,
I want to say the most normal character I've seen you play was Jakka.
yeah, and even that was like a odd choice for race and class. Um,
But give us a little on what it was.
yes, Jakar was a Pathfinder character that I had made for one of Ulvin's games, and he was a Tengu, which is the Pathfinder version of Kinku. It's a little different. It's a little more based on the Japanese lore for Tengu, uh, but it is a essentially the same thing. And that little guy was a wizard, which means he did not get any bonuses and anything that would help him be a wizard per se. Um, and in fact, most of the time, the Tengu, everything about the way that the Tengu is put down in the lore, kind of made them seem like that was the furthest thing from what they would do to a certain extent. Um, but I wanted what I wanted. I wanted a little crow man wizard who was an illusionist specifically because I thought it was cool, and I had a lot of fun with that character.
It was a lot of fun running with that character.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's the end of the day, right? That's what you're looking for at the end of the day. You're looking to have fun, and you're looking for it to be fun.
Remember, D&D is not about winning. It's about having fun. If you're playing the game to win, you're playing it wrong. That is a
Right.
solid truth.
Well, yeah, I mean, because you can't, what are you gonna win against the DM? No, you can't. You won't, and you shouldn't have that sort of that relationship with your DM. Um, but oh wait, hold on. Let's see what CD said here.
He wants to play a mage dwarf.
Mage dwarf. See, mage dwarf is fun.
I think what would work really well is a magus dwarf.
Maybe. But with that being said, going back to the start of it is, for me, I don't really pick race or class first. I kind of pick them together, though I am slightly more likely to pick race first because often I want to play a new race, but I do also want to play a new class half the time. But now I've gotten so far, I've played most of the classes, so you
At least
know,
for D&D.
for at least for D&D, yeah.
And so if
Most
you pull up the core and the advanced, and then the third party classes through Pathfinder First Edition at least, oh,
right.
bro.
And I've not played all the classes on all the editions, but in one edition or another, I played through a good portion of the classes available.
Oh yeah. I've played over the years of it, like Pathfinder First and 3.5. I've played all the classes from D&D 3.5 for the core.
Yeah.
Almost all of them for the advanced players handbook. And for Pathfinder First Edition, I've played every version of core character. Almost, like probably too shy for the advanced classes, but for when it comes to third party, I only got like 5 out of like the 40 or 50 that's available.
Yeah, there's a lot out there. There's a lot out there for Pathfinder, and
And that's another thing is if you're getting into it for the first time, one thing I always recommend is stick to core. Stick to the core classes and races. If you're putting your toe in for the first time, stick to the core. Because
sure.
they're usually the easiest ones to deal with. There's the most information. Most of the other players you'll probably be playing with can help you get a little more insight on the core classes and races than if you went out and bought one of the supplement books and tried to go from there.
Right. Absolutely. It's important to a certain extent understand where you're going with that class. If nothing else, make sure that your DM knows a thing or two about that class, because if it's something that's new to you, you're gonna want help.
Might be new to them.
Yeah, you're gonna want help, one way or the other. If it's new to you, you're gonna have some questions that come up, and having been in this situation with DMs that know exactly what you're doing and DMs that are like, well, I'm also kind of new to this.
Like the class you picked
Yeah,
for the Monday game we'll be running.
right.
As that medium, that's the first time I've had someone play that at one of my tables.
Absolutely. Yeah. And like I say, there's sort of pluses and minuses around. Just it's good to have some idea, especially if you're kind of new to role playing in general, to tabletop role playing in general. Um, but no matter what, definitely do your best to familiarize yourself with it. With all that being said, like I say, whether it's race or class, those are usually your first start. Uh, and I'll kind of flip flop between the two, do them both at the same time. Uh, Decide which works best for the character, because sometimes I've decided what kind of character I want to play first. Whether that's whether that's race or class is aside. I know what kind of character I want to play. I want to play this sort of archetype, this sort of idea, this sort of personality type. Sometimes that'll help. But
I think for me, it's after years of playing it, building characters, building folder this thick just for the shits and grins. It comes down to what kind of concept do I want to build, right? I want to build an orc who wanted to be a mage but was trained to be a fighter, so he's got a 16 strength and a 18 con and an 11 in intelligence, but he wants to go out and cast spells. That's all he wants to do is cast spells.
oof,
That's a fun concept. Things like that.
yeah, that's a fun concept, but a rough one. A rough
Oh
one.
yeah, but that's why when it gets down to it, right?
Yeah.
You're playing a character. You can still cast some spells, but I mean the
Depending on
best
your
spell he
edition.
can. Yeah, the best spell he can cast is fist.
Yeah. Cast Greater Thug. Um
There you go.
Yeah, I think that, building a concept is a lot of fun too. I think that there's really, as I said, there's really no wrong way to start. Everybody does it a little different. Everybody has their own fun with it. But as we're getting into it, since we talked about how we all start, let's go with how you start first. Let's talk about class. You know, personally, I know that we come off a little classless from time to time.
I did most of the time for me.
But that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about, what does your character do? Uh, a small
So
definition of class is the role in which your character fulfills, whether that is uh, broken down into the subsects of like tank or damage, which are terms that you either know or you don't know, uh, or it's broken down more succinctly into caster uh, or close ranged fighter or things like that. These are the roles that your class will determine if you fill or not.
yeah,
Now,
and
go
at
ahead.
the end of the day, it really depends on how yeah, sure, your class can determine that, but then you got to decide for yourself. It's going to be an RP heavy class. It's going to be a combat heavy class. Is it going to be a mix? Are you going to be a crafting class? I've had people that had level 20 fighters that their strength was crafting armor, not
Sure.
hitting things. It depends on how you want to spec the character. These are all things to think of, but the first thing we do is we're going to name this one Bob.
All right. Well, I guess we'll do names first.
I've been
Now,
thinking about that all day.
personally, I don't ever name my character first. Oh, let's capitalize it. It's his name. I always name my character last, but since Ulvin's got a name and he wants to use it.
Oh, no. So it depends. Am I building my PC? Am I building an NPC? Am I building a major role NPC? Then I usually name it last. Most of my basic NPCs, my tavern keeps, shop keeps, guardsmen, they were all named first. Bob, Ken, Tim, Tom,
Sure.
Phil.
Yeah, absolutely.
But when it
Built
comes
of
across,
necessity.
yeah. But when it comes to the king, his lieutenants, his generals, court mages, a DM player character that runs with the party. The name is never first.
Oh yeah. I always
When
end
it
on the name.
Yeah,
Always.
and it almost never fits the race. So because that's just how I like to name them.
Oh gosh, not
But
me. Not me. But we'll get to name. We'll get to name.
oh yeah, no. But like when it comes down to it, if you want to name your thing first and you don't want to name it, look up fantasy name generators.
Yeah.
They are fantastic. The people that have put in the work for it have done phenomenal work.
Oh yeah. And there's tons out there, including one built right into the D&D Beyond if you're building your character there, which hey, it's a great resource, use it. Um
Pathfinder's not that advanced.
Unfortunately not. But with that being said, let's get into class a bit more as I said. So I told you what class is. Now let's go over at least classes in their basics. Ulvin, tell me your top 3 favorite classes. And then
Um,
and then tell me about them.
Top 3 favorite classes: Rogue, Magus, Champion.
Okay.
Rogue, basic sneak, backstab. Right. I like having. I really like breaking the rogue archetype of just the. Uh, I'm gonna sit in the dark corner. I'm gonna brood. I like making rogues that, yeah, they are a little standoffish because they're introverted. They're
Okay.
trying to be friends, but it's rough for me, guys. But
Okay.
rogues are really good for they're skill junkies,
Yeah.
especially in Pathfinder. A rogue. So if you're going at it right, and you want to build a rogue, and you're trying to min max, you're building a rogue with a high intelligence for max skills available. Then you're picking a background that gives you skills you don't already have. Then you're picking a race that hopefully gives you skills that you don't have because skill whores. That's the
Yes,
word I was looking for.
skill. Well, maybe horror is a bad word for it, but skill junkie I kind of like a little better.
Yeah, fair. Skill junkie. Yeah, no, they're skill junkies. 100%. They're skill, 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 skill.
Yeah,
And
skills that kill.
yeah, skills to kill. And that's part of the reason why I like them, because they make a very, very well-rounded
Yeah, the versatility
team.
is there,
Yes.
definitely.
You could have a close range rogue. You can have a mid range to a long range rogue. Rogues are always better in stealth, and as the old school YouTube song, rogues do it from behind. Sneak attack damage with a rogue is ridiculous. That's part of the reason why I like them. I like the stealth aspect of them. I like the skill junkie aspect. That's why I
Sure.
like playing rogues. Then you have the Magus, which is from Pathfinder. Magus is essentially a martial caster. I can use a one-handed weapon, and as long as I keep this hand free, I can cast spells.
Yeah,
So they're a little bit more tanky than your standard caster, which is very, very small. It is easy to hit, terrible thing. The Magus allows you to wear a little extra armor, um, and be more viable inside and outside of combat, outside of just being able to decipher a book or cast a spell.
sure.
Especially with a smaller party where you might have a caster and then a ranger, or you might not have a caster. You might have a fighter and a fighter. I've had very unbalanced parties before, and
Sure,
so
fighter's not unbalanced. It just means you hit hard.
yeah. But when you're level 2 and 3 and you're facing off against 5 times your number, and there's 3 people, 2 fighters, having a magus to have a little bit of versatility for ranged magic is kind of nice.
Sure.
And then champion, which is another Pathfinder class, it's the best way to describe it. It's the team dad.
Okay.
If he can see you, if you can hear him, he's giving you boosts, kind of like a bard without having to play an instrument.
Sure.
He does things like hold the line, where if you've got literal you got teammates that have shields, they get +1 or 2 to AC as long as they stay within 5 feet of your character. He is the team dad. He's there to lift you up. And
Hey,
howdy,
420.
how's it going, man? The
Hey.
champion's there to inspire you, essentially,
Yeah.
while dealing out just ridiculous amounts of damage. And
Mhm.
he's a pure martial and buff class.
Sure.
So it's less casty, more I look at you and I speak inspiration at you instead of casting inspiration kind of thing. Those are my top 3 favorite classes for the reason. And most of the time I play those 3 as a DM character in a party to help fill roles.
Yeah, of
And
course.
a champion is really well when your
Works really well
table's
for that.
playing very squishy classes.
Yeah. Uh
Abundant squishy classes.
let me step in here and say that CD, that sounds great. That sounds like a fun dwarf, one that can punch him in the front, cast spells behind them. It just depends on your addition there as far as your utility to be able to do that with your what's the word I'm looking for? Your
Action economy.
action. Exactly, action
Excuse
economy.
you.
Yeah, I'm just making all kinds of bodily functions over here.
Elementalist is less martial, more actual element magic: earth, fire, wind, water, rain. You know the band.
Yes, Earth, Wind, and Fire. Um, but
Uh,
breaking down what you said a bit more and putting it in a context that maybe uh is a bit more uh chewable, let's say. Absolutely. Let's break down those 3 classes a little bit. Rogue. A rogue's
so,
responsibility. Go on.
oh no, sorry, I didn't know you were gonna read. My bad. Good.
Yes. Rogue. A rogue's responsibility in a party is to fulfill the necessity for stealth and for finding things like traps, as well as being able to be a martial class that has some survivability and some attack capability.
A little less survivability because they're still pretty squishy depending on your edition,
Right.
but definitely they're more of that single target damage instead of damage over time.
Sure. Well, and the survivability is there because they have the capability for armor. So they have a bit more survivability than any basic caster, a little less than some of the other martial classes, but they make up for that in burst damage. Small burst damage to a single target, which is what you get with your sneak attack. If you want to pick a rogue, classically what that means is you're going to be the guy that goes in first, who's sneaking around, who's making sure that the party doesn't fall into all the traps,
Well,
unlocking all
attempts
the
to,
doors,
let's be
and
fair.
the attempting to unlock all the doors and all the chests and so on and so forth. A rogue can be very useful because of its skill versatility, allowing that rogue to be very rich in roleplay potential and how you wish to portray said rogue. Rogues also get talents in other areas other than just uh, stealth and finding traps and such, which allows you to sort of take them in other directions than what a basic rogue could be. Personally, I also am a big fan of the rogue. It is hands down my favorite class, and it's because I identify with it more than anything else, without doubt. But with that being said, let's move on to the other classes you mentioned and sort of give some facsimile thereof. So next is Magus. Magus is essentially a spell sword. There are actually two ways you can do this in 5th edition if you'd like. There is a subclass within Wizard, which means you'll be more Wizard, but you could use the sword. And there's a subclass within Fighter, which means you'll be more Fighter, but you can cast some spells. Either way, this fully fulfills the role of Magus like he likes. And if you're playing the more common 5th edition, you can do that. The great thing about that is the the versatility there, the dual utility. Um, Being able to cast a spell and swing a sword is incredibly useful. And even if you barely do one or the other, even if you choose to be a Magus or an Eldritch Knight, let's say, where swinging your sword is the biggest thing you do, but being able to cast like a distance spell from time to time on a round without switching weapons can really come in handy.
Oh yeah.
Uh, and finally, champion. Now, champion, what I would compare the champion to in its closest facsimile to a more sort of well-known class, even though this is not this. I realize that it is not the same thing, and we will discuss that as soon as I'm finished. The closest facsimile to a champion would, of course, be a paladin. Uh, as far as something that reaches across several other classes, in my
I
opinion.
would say it would be a cross between Paladin Bard.
Sure, but that's not a close facsimile, is it? That is saying two classes that it could
It's just
be.
multi-classing.
The closest thing to a champion is a paladin. A paladin will give you the opportunity to cast spells and be an incredible martial fighter, uh, much like a champion will. The biggest difference is that if you are a paladin, you will be a much better martial fighter because smite is insane and it is so fun to use.
Oh
Such a
yeah.
fun dynamic. But you'll be able to cast the spells, the buffs, the heals, all of that. Being a paladin allows you to be a martial class, ranged or up close or at range, and be able to constantly be helping your party, whether that's with your healing hands or your couple heal spells or a couple buff spells, cast heroism, this, that, or anything else, all viable. Uh, and that is kind of the usefulness of that is being able to do those things. So we've kind of gone over those three, right? The rogue, everybody likes a good rogue. The the magus or some version of spell sword, or the champion, or as I said, closest to in any other game without dual classing would be a Paladin. Um, Now I'll talk about briefly my three favorites. My three favorites, they're short, sweet, and simple. For me, it's Rogue, and we don't need to give that more attention. You all know that we know and love the Rogue. It's one of the most versatile classes in the game, and I just feel like you can never go wrong with it. Two is Fighter, because if we're just being honest, no matter what edition, but 5th edition really likes the Fighter, but no matter what edition you're playing in, if you're going to be a fighter, you're going to do exactly the thing you want to do. It's a class that only gives you the amount of complexity that you want out of it. If you want it to be simple, make all the simple choices. If you want to be complex and a tactician, almost every edition I played gives you all the options to do that and then some. Between feats and subclasses and specializations and battle maneuvers, a fighter is known to be the simple class, the easy class that everybody starts at class. But even if you're an expert and you've been playing for a while, trust me, there's plenty in there for you to dig your teeth into and really enjoy the play elements that are necessary there. Aside from that, a fighter is also, it's easy. And I don't mean easy as in easy to play, though it can be, yes. But it's easy to make work for whatever you want it to work for. As I said, I love rogues because they're so versatile, but god damn it, so's a fighter. You want that fighter to be a farmhand? Done. You want that fighter to be a city guard? Done. You want that fighter to be a failed mage? Done. You want that fighter, it doesn't matter. You can use any background, any story, and you can make it work with that fighter. And it's an excellent jumping off point if you do want a multi-class. So definitely number 2 for me is fighter. Number 3, and for those of you who know me and know how sort of inclined to the arts I am, this you may even be surprised that this will be number 3 as opposed to, like number 1, pardon that background sound, or number 2. But number 3 is the tried, the true, the bard.
Yeah, that's not surprising.
The bard is absolutely, without a doubt, and without any question, the most versatile class in any edition you're going to play it in. And even though I've already said the first 2 are very versatile, and it's part of the reason I love them, they pale in comparison to the bard. The only one that even comes close is the druid. And we'll discuss druids in a bit here, because we will go over all the core classes and we'll get into the nitty gritty of some of the other classes briefly. Not trying to make it all as long as winded as this. But bard can do everything. You want it to cast spells? Hey, that bard will cast some spells. You want to wear some armor? You can wear a little armor. You want to be able to use a weapon? That bard can use a weapon. And you can take any number of 1,000 paths to be better at one thing or another. You want a buff? Guess what? You're great at buffing. You want a damage? Hey, shoot him with lightning. You want a charm? Done deal, easy peasy. You want to lie? You'll never find a silver-tongued devil with more silver tongue than that. And you can take it, again, any direction, any way you want to go with it. It allows you the opportunity to express yourself so across the board. And though it will come with more complexity, it will also allow you, especially in 5th edition, you get Jack of all trades. You take half proficiency on literally all your skills. You think that you want to talk about a rogue being a skill whore? Take half proficiency in all your skills. It's rough, and by rough I mean great. So those are my top 3, and those are the reasons, and those are the roles they fill, right? Well, I guess I didn't discuss the roles too heavily, but usually fighter is going to be that up close personal martial damage. He is the guy. Does that mean he can't use a bow? No, it does not. A fighter can also use a bow. If it's a weapon, he can use it and he will kill you with it.
Oh yeah.
The bard, typically, the bard is your half caster, which means they're not going to be super tough, but they can definitely use a weapon. And they 100%, well, maybe more like 3/4 caster. Uh, but they are definitely great for support. Typically, the bard's role, and again, versatility, but typically the bard's role in any party is there to support the party around them. They do a lot of debuff, a lot of buff, and give you a little bit of sweet inspiration anytime you want to just push it a little bit further with any of your roles or any of the things you're trying to do. Crowd control. Yes. Let's see. Fighter, mage, necro, crowd control. That's too many classes. Don't do 3 classes. That's silly.
Well, I mean, if you follow the story absurd,
It's
the
absurd.
level 20 that was a level 1 in every class.
It's absurd. Um Absolutely absurd. Uh so let's briefly touch on some of the other classes. As I've said, we've talked about rogue, fighter, paladin, uh magus, and bard, but there's some other classes we can touch on for the choice for as far as choices that you may want to choose when you're building your character. Other choices include cleric, which I'm going to tell you right now, nobody wants to be the cleric and there's no good reason for it. Cleric is one of the toughest, roughest classes. Every edition buffs it since second edition, and I'm going to tell you why, because they really want you to want to choose to be a cleric.
Yeah,
Because
so on
nobody
that
does.
note, if you build it right, no matter what edition, no matter what you use, the right build of cleric can be the most dangerous thing you've ever come across. Um, if you know how to play and build it. I've had people who've been banned from playing clerics because of how they play and build their character, dude. It can
Yeah.
get ridiculous.
Sure, yeah. Oh, your favors are fighter, mage, and necro. I feel like saying mage and necromancer as 2 separate classes is a bit redundant, but if that's the way that you want to
Well,
express it,
technically, necromancer is a subclass of mage. It's not its own individual class. It's something that a mage trains into, right?
right, it's a style of magic that a mage learns. But
Yeah.
I mean, those are you're on both sides of the spectrum there with fighter and mage, which we are about to get into. Pardon me. Let me get that out of the way.
Rude.
Katie's not on the stream. She can't yell at me for burping. Um, so,
All you see is a shoe come out of nowhere.
uh, so yes, clerics. Every edition wants you to play them because the things they can do, and they make it so the things they can do are incredible. What is the base role that a cleric fulfills in any party? Well, that's very simple.
Healer.
Point blank and period. Your cleric's your healer. That's the man that makes
Well,
sure you don't die.
actually, healer and tank.
But it can also be a tank. Absolutely. A cleric, because clerics are almost always proficient in heavy armor, which means you can't hit them that well. And they get a decent health die in every edition I've ever played.
Yeah.
Clerics can be right up there in the mix, in the mess, and they can use
I mean, yeah,
decent weapons.
Pathfinder First Ed shows it as a D8, which is a lot better than the D6 for the standard magic casters,
Exactly.
which is on the same level as the Magus. Magus is also a D8. It's not a D10 like the fighter or
Or a
the 10 or
D12
12 for
like
the
the
Barbarian,
barbarian.
because, Barbarian health.
Health is a big thing.
And when you get, ones and twos in all your rolls, you kind of hate life. Fighter for when you want to be up front, smash with style, mage in the back to bombard, necro for mid support / sponge. So necro is not a good sponge class. It is too weak, way too weak. It has too many weaknesses. Necromancers are very, very susceptible to holy magic, to radiant damage, so on and so forth. You have any amount of divinity casting, any divinity potions, you can kill a necromancer with holy water. They don't make good sponges. Now, as a mid support, they only support the undead. They have no buffs for their allies.
They do support their allies with undead, but it takes a little while for that to be incredibly useful. It's necromancers, in my experience, are somewhat of a slow build class. But hey, I'm not here to hate on what you do with the necromancer. You're right. The summons will be your sponge. I am here to tell you that I don't consider it a class different than mage. Moving on. So we've gotten the cleric, right? We got the rogue, the fighter, the bard, the paladin, the cleric, the magus. Next up on the list here, let's talk about it since we're already talking about the differences between the two. Let's talk about our mages. Now, there are 3 different types of casters, aka mages, available in almost any edition these days that you can get your hands on. These are your big 3 when it comes down to it. Number 1, the tried and true. Everybody knows it. It's the wizard.
The utility caster.
A utility caster. Wizard most of the time gets the most spell capability. Wizard gets the most
amount of
spells. The most amount of spells. And it also will usually get the versatility to be able to have more spells than it can cast, so therefore it can switch out its daily allotted spells. Now, with that being said, that adds complication. Wizards are one of the more complicated spell casters to play because there are many levels to it. Does this mean it's inaccessible for a newcomer? Absolutely not. You want to play a wizard? Play a wizard. Just tell your DM that you haven't played one before, so that anytime you have a question like, hey, how does this work? That DM can be there to be like, don't worry, little baby bird. I'll feed you and give you all the knowledge you need. Wizards, as far as casters are concerned, lore-wise, are casters based purely on knowledge, which means they studied very hard to get to where you're going to be, and they are an intelligence-based caster. Great caster, classic. What you can do with that is specialize in a specific type of casting, whether that's illusion, evocation, abjuration, transmutation, necromancy. There's probably more I'm missing.
Illusionist.
I think I said illusion.
I wasn't paying attention. I was reading wizard.
So you can specialize in a specific type of magic. Graviturgy, gravity magic, time magic. There are many. Those are just the 5th edition ones. Let's not even get into the things you can get in Pathfinder or 2nd edition or so on and so forth. Specializing in a specific type of magic, studying in that also gives you incredible buffs to that. So you want to be a guy that throws fireballs? Let me tell you, you be a wizard that specializes in evocation, you're gonna throw the freaking heck out of those gosh dang fireballs. All very doable. But as I said, a little bit of complexity there. Next up, one that you got something you want to say about the wizard before we leave? Or before we move on?
Fizban. You want a good example of a great wizard? Look up Fizban. Fizban.
Classic wizard with Fizban. Yeah, that thing is loud. Anyways, classic wizard.
Bro, there's 5 back to back playing out there. I kind of want to go. Sorry.
Wizard's a great class. Like I said, bread and butter of your caster classes. Killer. Moving on. Next, for me, number 2, second best in the books. A little bit easier, a little bit less utility, but just as fun. Sorcerer. Sorcerer is not in every edition you could play, but it is in most of the more recent editions you can find. A sorcerer, based on lore, is a caster that is able to cast purely because their blood is magic. That's right. Ladies and gentlemen, they got that magic blood.
Magic gift, magic from a gift or bloodline.
Okay, also a gifted magic. So whether that means that some magical creature said now you're magic, or your ancient
And
ancestors a dragon.
and I was gonna say, and do we know what the most popular form of bloodline for sorcerer is? Draconic.
Draconic, because dragons can turn into anything and have sex with that. So live with that knowledge. Um, uh, with that
Wow, I
being
feel
said,
so bad for Benedict Cumberwaffle.
cucumber patch. Anyways,
Cucumber patch, yeah.
uh, so when it comes to casters, sorcerers can be a lot of fun for different reasons. Sorcerers, depending on your edition, get little buffs, get little perks just for the type of magic that they were gifted or born with. So if it's draconic, hey, you get some special dragon stuff. If it's fey magic, you get some special fey wild magic stuff. If it's genie magic, you get some special genie stuff. And whatever it is, you get it and you get to have fun with it, which is a fun element you can add uh, that you can add to any character and really see how that develops the way that you play it and portray it. And aside from that, uh, the other thing they get in some editions, they are limited to being the only ones that get it. In other games, they are not. They also get meta magic, which basically allows you to take whatever magic you're doing and alter it in some way. So, for instance, you could do just speaking about 5th edition specifically, you could do careful spell. So when you cast a spell like fireball that's going to hit everybody in a huge area, and your fighters in that huge area, guess what? Use a little bit of your meta magic and fighters safe.
All I gotta say is it's his fault for being in the middle of my target area.
Yes, classic caster mentality. Absolutely. I love it. And if you think that way too, then you should probably be a caster. But understand your fighter's going to hate you.
Well, your fighter, your paladin, your fucking ranger, your rogue, your monk, your
The rest of
paladin.
your team is probably not going to be a big fan.
Unless
Your
you've
bard
got
won't
some
get it,
really
though.
good friends. Oh, your bard's probably sitting behind you. Go, do it. Let me buff you.
So yes, those are the two big upsides to choosing a sorcerer as your caster. It is a charisma based caster instead of intelligence. So you cast well because you are so charismatic. Um, and like I say, they're a lot of fun. They're a little bit easier out of the box. You could start with a sorcerer, and they're not going to have to do things like, which spells did I memorize today? Let me build a spell book. Nope. Guess what? You just know magic. These are the spells you know. You know why? Because you're magic, dude. Welcome to being magic. Uh, I would definitely recommend sorcerer for the beginning casters, but again, hey, be whatever you want to be. It's a lot of fun no matter what. Last but certainly not least is your warlock. Now your warlock.
You know, you are leaving one out, and it is a very magical class.
Which class am I leaving?
Druid.
Druid is a subcategory of priest, and we're gonna get there.
No, hasn't been for a very long time.
Still is to
Druid's
me.
been Druid is its own class and has been for many editions.
No.
This is a hill I will die on.
So this is what I'm trying to tell you though. Druidic magic isn't arcane magic. It is holy magic. No matter what you say.
Depends on the edition. Depends on the edition.
It does depend on the edition, but most common Druidic magic is not arcane magic. It is holy magic, and therefore not the same. And we'll get to druids. Don't you worry, your pretty little head.
Still magic.
It is, but they're not purely casters either. And we're talking about pure caster classes, which is why cleric's not in here either, because they are not pure casters. They are holy casters, and they can fight.
And I wouldn't consider warlock a pure caster either, because they're just magic sugar babies.
Yes, but their big thing is casting. Let's move in.
No, that's one spell. One spell doesn't count.
Well, depends on the edition and how and all that.
Eldritch Blast.
Eldritch Blast is it's the killer. So
it's the meme. It's the meme.
It's the meme. Yes. Which is why I've never made a warlock that has Eldritch Blast. Moving on.
Right? I never wanted to pigeonhole myself into that role.
Yeah, I didn't want to be
Oh,
that guy. So let's talk about it because we're already talking around it. Let's talk about briefly Warlock. Now, I have broken down all of these thus far. Do you want to take this one, or do you want to give me this one and you can take the next
uh,
couple?
so when it comes to fifth edition, I can't
Okay,
give
I'll
that
break it down
twister
fifth
like
edition
you.
wise, and then you can give your input on it, like you did with Sorcerer and Wizard. So Warlock, we're going to talk about fifth edition first, but then we're going to expand to every other edition. And I'm kind of doing this fast talking thing because I really don't want to spend all
Well, I
day
mean,
on these
we were
parts.
technically supposed to build a character, not
Right.
explain classes, and we can tend to.
Yes. I just want to get through the classes because I'm not going to do this with races.
Oh no,
Um,
there's too many. Oh
no,
god.
but I want to get through the classes because classes are important when you're building a character.
Oh yeah.
As I say, most people do end up starting with classes. So, Warlock. Warlock is a caster, but the caster doesn't have magic in their blood and they didn't study hard for it. Based on the lore, a Warlock is a caster that gets his magic because they sold something and or made a deal with someone that had immense power. Whether that is some archfey or some genie or some old god, whatever it is, or some demon, whatever it is, you made a deal for power, which means at the end of the day, the warlock has the most limited power because it is literally, because lore wise, it's literally limited by your patron. But it also is very interesting because these patrons, uh, these patrons will gift you boons. And these boons can be different things, and this is pretty common across editions. These boons can be different things uh, depending on who your patron is. Maybe that's going to be fire resistance because you're a fiend patron, or it'll be the ability to like go into a lamp because you're a genie patron, or uh, you know, if it's summoning darkness because your patron is a old god that lives deep in the darkest corners of the universe. Whatever it is, they're going to give
Look,
you a little.
I have to jump in real quick.
Yes.
Any one of you that plays a warlock whose patron is Cthulhu, I judge you. Not in a bad way, but I still judge you.
The only reason I would judge you that your patron is Cthulhu is because in most of the text that I've seen, the flavor text that I've seen, when you choose a patron that is an old one, it doesn't specifically say Cthulhu. So be original. Take a different approach. Have fun with it because I'm going to tell you that that's not in your base lore anyway. Anywhere. So unless your DM has base lore for an old god, which is not common, that gives you complete license to decide what that old god is. Is that an old god that is literally an old man in a dark corner? Is that an old god that is a concept beyond time and space? Is that an old god that literally just represents one word? Figure it out and make that, because that is what is cool about making your own character in any D&D style game, any role-playing game of any kind, is that you get to make those decisions and you get to have fun with it. Now, of course, everything you want to do, you're gonna want to run by your DM because there's nothing worse than being like, my old one is a ladder with legs, and your DM go, you know what, bud, it is not that. Uh,
You know, we're not calling this one the step ladder.
yeah. Guess I should mention I've only got to play 3-ish games, and that goes one of the. Fair. CD, you should definitely, if you can, play some more games. We looks like we went to commercial, but I hope that they don't just like put the commercial over us and they pause it and let us come back. Um, you're talking, no hearing.
Yeah, motorcycles. But yeah, no, on my mod view, I don't have a commercial at the same time as you. So I think the commercials are
Yeah, they're like
desync.
they're not synced up. So I feel like it has to pause you because not everybody's going to get commercial at the same time. It just seems silly. Anyways, you can rewind even if you don't. So, Necro definitely, or not Necro, CD definitely get in there and play some more games when you get a chance. It's fun and it's what we love doing around here. And I would help you, except for I have a very, very, very full schedule of D&D, and I literally cannot play another game. I will grow tired of it, which is difficult because I have played 3 games a week for months, and now I'm gonna be doing some weeks 4. So, that being said, uh, your warlock, as far as casters go, is going to give you a little less utility. It's going to give you a little less ability, but it will give you more more abilities that cost nothing. Right? Every caster has some level of cost to it, where it's going to cost you a spell slot or some version of mana. To sort of video game eyes it for those people who may not have a lot of experience. But no matter what, your caster has, they're gonna use some of that. But with a warlock, you're gonna have a lot more abilities that are just gonna be like ready out the gate, use it whenever you want, and that is kind of the utility of it. So it helps out a lot. Warlocks are also kind of one of the more limited to other editions. There are not as many editions that have warlocks that I've seen, at least, as wizards or sorcerers. Um, so if you're playing 5th edition, it's a great place to, but I really couldn't tell you what other editions or games you could play a warlock in. So those are our 3 main casters. Let's move on to the class that Ulvin tried to give me some shit over, druids. Now I didn't lump in druids with the casters because a lot of the lore, and again, not all the lore says this anymore, but a lot of the lore would lump druids in with divine casters, with holy magic. And I'm going to tell you why. When it comes to a druid, based on lore, is someone who essentially worships nature in their casting. They respect nature in its entirety and use that power to fuel their abilities. What a druid can do within the confines of a party has very little limitation. A druid has the capability to do things like wild shape into into animals, uh, or cast spells. Everything from buffs and debuffs to uh,
So I do have one point of
damage.
contention.
Go on.
Under 5th edition, it says the ancient druidic traditions are sometimes called the old faith in contrast to the worships of gods. It's not divine.
No, it's the divinity of nature, to be fair. In contrast to gods, doesn't mean it's not a divine casting. It's the divinity of
This
nature,
is a
per
hill
se.
I'm dying on, man. They're not a divine caster. Now, you can, because there's an option to make the divine druid, and that is the norm. It
Right.
is. But in how it's explained, it is not.
Okay. Well, you can die on that hill all you want. You can die on that hill till you're dead. But with that being said, no matter how you wish to describe it, it is not the same as a wizard. It is not the same as a sorcerer. It is not the same as a warlock.
Still spellcasting.
It is casting a spell, sure. It is in the same way that clerics are still casting spells, but guess what? They're just not the same. And moving forward with that idea, they are not the same because they're doing one thing better than the rest. Because just like any other divine caster, they can cast all the heal spells in almost every edition. there's no limit to the heal spells that they can cast.
I think what it is they don't get the top tier. They get just one under, right?
I honestly, I don't think they have any limitation to the heal spells that they can cast, but I could be wrong. And if I'm wrong, I'm okay with that. But with that being said, they can heal, which not every class can do. The only other classes that can do that are either Divine Entangled or Bards. Bards can heal, but Bards are big on buffs. So with that being said, they can heal. They can turn into animals. They can use a sword. You want them up close, they're up close. You want them far away, they're far away. Very useful in a myriad of different ways. And when it comes to role playing, you want to start talking to trees, my dude? Be a druid. It's great. You can do all kinds of things and make your DM have to do all kinds of things in response to it. Druids can be a lot of fun. Just remember that that you have a reverence to nature. So if you're already a bit of a tree hugger, if you're already a bit of a nature lover, then guess what? This class is for you. But now that we've gotten through Druid and their utility and whether or not they're arcane casters, divine casters, some other version of caster, there is no other version of caster.
So caster's caster. When it comes down to it, clerics only get like 6 more healing spells. That's really it. And the druid still gets like 11 anyways.
As I said, they can do healing almost as good as a
yeah,
a
it
cleric.
still doesn't need to be divine if it's nature.
Sure, it's the divinity of nature. You and I have differences in opinion on what's divine.
Oh yeah.
I think nature and the planet itself has its own divinity, and to worship that is what a druid does. But apparently, you don't think that nature has divinity, and that's fine.
So I call it. I think it's more spirituality than it is divinity. But again, two sides of the same coin.
Splitting fucking hairs when you say it's the difference between spirituality and divinity.
There is a difference, but that's a conversation for another day.
Playing the game of semantics so hard with that statement. Get out of here. Moving on. All right, what classes did we miss thus far? We've gotten Rogue, Fighter, Druid, Paladin, Magus, all three clasters.
Barbarian and Ranger.
Barbarian and Ranger.
And
Artificer.
Monk.
Monk. Oh gosh. Oh yeah.
Monk and Artificer. Yeah, so those 4.
Monk, Artificer, and Alchemist. We'll discuss those. We're gonna put Artificer and Alchemist together. But yes, because those are relatively common classes.
I was gonna say that's not from the Player's Handbook.
No, it is not from the Player's Handbook. But we are going to get over those.
Yeah.
Yes, we are going to go over those because they're pretty common in a lot of things. So let's get right into Monk. Monk is a great one. Monk.
Oh yeah.
Monk is my 4th favorite class. I love a monk. So let's discuss what that is. A monk, even though typically a monk is thought to have is usually thought to be linked to divinity in some way, linked to religion or holiness. When you think of it out of the confines of a tabletop role playing game,
especially if you're pulling from modern influences,
right? You know, when you think of like your Tibetan monks and so on and so forth, those are men of religion, absolutely. But what they're pulling from in role-playing games are like Shaolin monks. And sure, they're men of religion, but they're also men of great physical capability.
I'm going to say, if you want a martial class that and pure damage output can put some of the others to shame, you go for a monk.
If you want to go up into every fight and get right up into somebody's face, guess what? The monk is for you. As I said, a fighter swings a weapon better than any other class, and I stand by that. No class swings a weapon better than a fighter. But if you don't like swinging weapons, if all you want is these 2 fists and maybe these 2 elbows and maybe these 2 knees and these 2 feet, that's right. If you're
maybe a holy weapon,
maybe a holy weapon, maybe. if you want to be a master of the 8 points like a Muay Thai master, it should be. Which, if you get that reference, hey, good on you, because that's some real deep knowledge there. Anyways, if you want to do that, monk is your class. Monks do it, and God fuck they do it well. A monk, as you level it up, will be the class that can give you the most attacks per round, with the exclusion of in 5th edition, with the exclusion of taking an action surge. Uh, a monk
See,
can.
that's why you just build like 1 or 2 levels, or how many levels you need for fighter to get that. Just then you just do the rest monk, and then you're just fucking everybody's day up.
Oh, yeah. You want to do 9 attacks in a round? Let's do it.
In Pathfinder, you can technically get the monk up to like I think 12 or 15 attacks per round.
In 5th edition, you can definitely do like, I think it's not, I think it's either 9 or 10, probably 10. 10 attacks in a round. You
Yeah, it
get
gets ridiculous.
you get a lot of attacks. You get a lot of attacks. Yeah, because you can do, oh no, it's 8. It's 8. Because you can do 4 with Flurry of Blows.
Jesus.
And then you can do your, if you multi-class, you can take your action surge and do 4 more. And any number of those can be a stunning strike for free. In 5th edition, at least.
Yeah, no, it monks have always been touted, no matter what edition, as a broken class. Um, always, because you build them as high decks, and they're nearly untouchable.
Right. So let's get into monks a little bit here for the viewers, because gosh, this is taking so long, but it's okay. We'll go like an hour and a half, 2 hours on this one. I don't care. Uh, Getting into monks, what monks do is they fight with their hands and feet. Uh, the upside of using a monk over a fighter is that you'll be able to get um, a couple different kind of skill sets. Some of the biggest things that a monk gets over a fighter is the flurry of blows, which allows you to attack twice on your bonus action, in 5th edition terms, but it essentially allows you to attack more times, no matter what edition you're in. And you get the stunning strike. Those are two. That's kind of the bread and butter. Monks also get more speed, and they get unarmored defense in almost every edition, which means you don't need to wear armor, and you're still hard to hit. Which there are only 2 classes in any edition that allow that, and monk is one of them. With that being said, they are a good lot of fun. You get to play your dreams of being in your favorite anime or kung fu film all you want, because that's what a monk do. Monk do what a monk do. You get to be very inventive in telling your DM how exactly you attack. You get to do more attack maneuvers like trip or push or shove or all these other things. You can really throw those in there and change the name of the game, change the dynamic. And if you wanted, you can go in and strike and leave in a second. Go in and strike and leave in a second. The other upside to monks is they give you more stuff that you can use your bonus action for in 5th edition, which is great because that bonus action ends up being super limited. And if you can throw in like, hey, I want to take the dodge action, but as a bonus action, that's great. And in other editions, likewise, they give you kind of more stuff you can do in a turn. That's a big monk thing in every edition. It's like, hey, you can only do this many things a turn, but if you're a monk, you can do about 3 or 4 more than that. And that's great. So useful. In the confines of a party, monks are martial class. They are not usually the toughest, but they are definitely gonna hit. The burst damage is there, but there is a build up to that. So your low level monk may not hit as hard as that low level fighter does. But your mid to high level monk, they're gonna hurt some things. So definitely have fun with that class. I always do every time. And build what you think is gonna be fun. Then we're gonna get into the other class that has unarmored defense. I need no armor when I've got unadulterated rage. That's right, barbarians. Barbarian is I'm big, I'm tough, I'm mad, and I no need word much. You don't need to be smart to be a barbarian, but hey, you could always go against the grain. Make the character you want. I hate following tropes. Make a smart barbarian.
And yet you play them so well.
What, the tropes?
Yes.
Of course. You got to know them to dislike them. You know what I'm saying? It's like the
But I
Bible.
love the barbarian trope that while they're not intelligent, they're wise.
Yes.
The wise barbarian.
Wise barbarian is also, yeah. Well, I mean, it's totally a thing. And I think that, I think there's always room to sort of interpret things however you want. So, to get into Barbarian, what's a Barbarian's job? So you may have heard me earlier say the word tank, and Ulven say it a couple times. Tank means that's the guy who is up front who can absorb the most attacks, whether that means they avoid them deftly because they have high armor class, or if that means they could just take them even if they don't avoid them. That's what a barbarian does, specifically in 5th edition. In other editions, they also make them really good at attacking. But in 5th edition, the biggest bonus you get is that you can absorb damage. So, hey, even if they can hit you, with which, if you build it right, you'll be hard to hit, it won't matter. Barbarians' main, the main thing they do is they rage. And when you rage, you become resistant to different types of damage, including bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing. Depending on, again, your edition and your subclass, that can expand to all sorts of other things, but those are your main ones right there. And that means you just take half damage from anything from the things that hit you that are like that, which is great. It's killer. Aside from that, being a barbarian in some editions makes it so when you hit hard. And even in 5th edition, it does add a little bit of damage when you're raging. So you get in there and you hit it. And you just keep their attention. That is your biggest role in your party as a barbarian. But again, as I've said before, and I'll say again, you can play that however you want. You can do with it a lot of different things. But keep in mind that will be the thing you are best at. Barbarians are one of the more simple classes at the end of the day. You can do a fair amount of things with them. But in all the versions that I've seen, it's a bit more simple than the fighter. Again, the fighter has a lot of options that you can take. Barbarians have options, but it is a bit more simple. What do? You go in, you get angry, and you fight. So have fun with that. Play with your rage issues. Make a version of Hulk. Make rage more like panic. Whatever you want, however you want, do that thing. Then we
call that flavor.
I call that flavor. Put a little flavor on it. So what was left? We had Barbarian,
Ranger.
Ah, yes, Ranger. Now,
the one when 5th edition first released probably had the least amount of love given to it, honestly.
Definitely the least amount of love in 5th edition, but they did work on that.
Oh yeah, no, now it's viable. But what I remember when it first released and we were going through the player's handbook for the first edition for 5th, it was a subpar class. You could build a better ranger out of a fighter at that time.
Yes, you could.
Now, it's been tweaked enough.
It's got a lot more to it, definitely. So, Ranger is exactly when you're thinking of Legolas, or when you're thinking of even Aragorn, right? Technically, he is a ranger. When you're thinking of your Robin Hood, Ranger is typically that. Ranger is a class that gives a lot of bonus to martial ranged damage, usually. Does that mean it won't give you bonus to martial melee or martial close range? No, it will also give you bonuses there, absolutely 100%. But it is well known and usually played at range. The cool things about Ranger include Hunter's Mark, which is apparent since basically the beginning of Rangers, which allows you to mark your prey and gives you bonuses to when you attack them. Whether that's bonuses to hit, bonuses to damage, what have you, depends on the edition and what system you're playing in, but it will give you some version of bonus. You will also get favored enemy bonuses, so things that you like to hunt.
Oh, I totally forgot about this. And spells.
And favored, yes, of course. And favored terrain, which means a specific habitat or area in which you like to travel in. And both of those things will give you bonuses to either tracking or moving through, or bonuses to those things. So if you like to hunt dragons, hey, guess what? You're gonna hunt dragons. If you want to be able to fight dragons, you're gonna be able to fight dragons, man. Fight them good. And if you like to fight dragons in the tundra, ain't nobody gonna be better at it than you. Uh, and that's really what a ranger's supposed to do. Now, there's a classic joke that I like to use a lot. I'm not gonna lie to you, which is ranger is just a not as good fighter. And to a certain extent, that's right. If all you're gonna do is focus on the fact that you can shoot a bow with your ranger, then you should probably consider just being a fighter. But there's a lot of nuance in the subclasses and the other options you can do with that. The important part, or the tricky part, comes in when you consider the options available as you level that could make you better than a fighter. And in other editions, that's as simple as having an animal companion. I know that in second edition, when I was playing second edition, our ranger who had an animal companion might as well just been playing two characters, and his damage was insane. That's very viable in almost any edition, right? Uh, and consider the fact that in most editions you are a quarter caster, which means you're not a wizard, you're not even a bard or anything like that. But hey, you got some spells, and some spells you can use in concert with your melee or ranged martial combat. Spells that improve the damage to your arrows, make them hit an area of effect, all kinds of things. So it can be a lot of fun, and if you want to be that kind of woodsy nature hunter based character, what you're looking for is a ranger. And like I say, really dig into it and figure out if that's like how you can use it the best. It's a lot of fun, but if all you want to do is shoot a bow, pick a fighter. Point blank and period. Pick a fighter. Uh, so that's Ranger. I don't hate on the class. I actually think it's a lot of fun. I don't play it a lot, but I think it can be a lot of fun when used properly. And I've seen people really just enjoy the heck out of it. Last but not least, we're gonna bunch these two together. There's Artificer and Alchemist. In fifth edition, Alchemist is sort of a subclass of Artificer. In other editions, it is the option instead of Artificer. Either way, this is a class uh, that doesn't focus on casting as its ability. Now, in 5th edition, you can still cast as an Artificer. But the idea is that the stuff you're able to do isn't supposed to be magic. It is supposed to be based on something you can make or build. As an Artificer, you build things that you can use to do these magical effects. Or as a alchemist, you make these concoctions and things to either alter yourself or others in one way, shape, or form. These are usually intelligence based, which, by the way, going over them, rogue is dex based, monk is wisdom based, bard is charisma based, sorcerer is charisma based, warlock is charisma based.
So monk is dex and whiz.
Dex and
That
wisdom.
that one's a duel. Yeah.
Dex and, well, yeah, you're right, but it is wisdom is the thing you'll need the most out of that, and if you want to cross class, it actually only specifies as wisdom. Rangers dex and whiz as well. Wizards intelligence, barbarian strength. Druid is wisdom. What am I missing?
Bard's charisma.
I said bard's charisma. I don't know
You
what I'm
said
missing other
cleric.
than that.
Yeah.
Cleric
I can
is
go
wisdom.
through the list. I got it right here.
Cleric is wisdom. I think I got them all. And when you come to Artificer or Alchemist, it's going to be intelligence. So it's all going to be about how smart you are and how you can put things together and how you can use those things to make other things. In a game, Artificers and Alchemists role in the party typically is either heavily on support or or building the things they need to be in the position they want to be. So if you're, say, an Artificer, you can build a mech suit so that you can fight up in the front lines. If you're a alchemist, you can make the potions, the potions and concoctions you need to make yourself stronger, faster, and better, so that you can take anything toe to toe. You really just kind of get that opportunity to make yourself what you need to be in whatever position you think you need, which is very useful. Those are some of those two are not the more well known or more well explored classes, but they are up there as far as official classes across the board of things. So I wanted to throw those two in there because they are in 5th edition, and again, they're featured in a lot of other things. Are there any other things you want to touch on real quick before we move on? Any of your favorite classes that you think we need to talk about from Pathfinder?
No, we spent way too long on classes for,
We'd spent
just supposed to be going through a character sheet and how to build it. We spent way too long on classes.
Yes. Well, I mean, this whole thing's not just about building a character sheet. It's about building a character. But that being said, let's pick a class for Bob. And what do you think Bob's going to be? We both like rogue. Bob's going to be a rogue.
I was going to say the dirtiest and simplest is going to be fighter or rogue.
Right. Bob's going to be a rogue. And then you would pick, as I say, most people do class then race. There are so many races, so many race options, so many things that affects when choosing a race. What I like to do is I like to look at what makes that race what it is. And I don't mean like it gets a plus to strength and a plus to intelligence. You know what I'm saying? I throw that right out the window. I never look at it. I look at it, but I never care about it. What I'm looking at are things like, does it have dark vision? Excuse me.
Can I see in the dark?
I love that. What other things does that race do well? Like, how orcs can just survive a little bit better, or same thing with Goliaths, or things like that. What I'm also looking at is and this is kind of the big thing, is I'm reading the lore about them. I'm figuring out what their culture's like in whatever the world is, and how fun will I think that'll be to play. And that's something that you really got to discuss with your DM depending on the world in which you're playing in. But that is a big thing that I like to look into when I'm doing this sort of stuff. Like, oh, that sounds interesting. How did they come to be? Where are they from? Okay, and then I talk to my DM. Well, in the book it says that they're like this and they're from here. Is that what you're going to do? Oh, no? Okay. And then I just build it. I go, oh, gosh, you know what? I want to do that. I want to play that. I want to interpret what that means to me. And that's 10 out of 10 what I do when I'm picking a race. What do you do when you're picking a race, Ulvin? To give myself an opportunity to stop speaking for a minute.
When I started playing, it was, ooh, this one looks pretty.
Mm-hmm.
Well, 100%. My first 2-3 games, ooh, this one looked pretty. This one looked pretty. Ooh, this one looked pretty.
Yes.
For me, again,
Yes.
it comes down to, am I building a fighter? Am I trying to min-max? Am I just looking for something fun? If I'm looking for something fun, I'm not going to go with a base class or a base race. I'm going out there. I'm reaching out there. I'm looking for weird shit, whether it fits with the class style or not.
Yeah.
Which is why some of my favorite things to do is either pigeonhole it, a damn fear rogue, or make it just a total fighter. That's not normal for turtles.
Yeah, they get that wizard bonus.
Yeah. But I always like making just interesting combinations, making things that shouldn't be fighters or wizards into them.
Get your Goliath rogue going, like what?
Oh yeah, and I refuse to make Azamar clerics or paladins. I refuse to make them. It's not a prejudice thing. It just pigeonholes it a little too well. We glow.
It pigeonholes it super hard. You know what's funny is the only Azamar I ever made, and I'm honestly probably going to remake him, was in fact a cleric. But the only reason I did that is because the first character I ever made was a tiefling thief, And I thought, what's the opposite of that? And it happened to be an Azamar cleric.
Oh, 100%.
It's not that it really because they lined up well, because yeah, sure they do, but who cares about that? I just wanted to make literally the opposite of the first character I ever made, and that just felt like the opposite to me.
Well, oh yeah, especially since tieflings are supposedly along the evil alignment, where Azamars usually aren't. They're usually along a good alignment.
Right.
Usually.
Usually.
But for me, as I sit now, if I'm just trying to build a combat-based class, then I would find something that would suit it. If we're building a rogue, I'm finding something that's going to lean more towards the dex or intelligence bonuses,
Sure.
which you're looking at like elf, halfling, maybe a gnome, the
Sure.
human, which just gives you a bonus to everything.
Right, because they like humans for some reason, but
And if you just want to go, you pick an orc. Make an orc rogue.
yeah, why not? Make an orc rogue. Have fun with it. That's what I like to say. For our rogue here, let's just choose a quick race. What do you think? Bugbear?
Bugbear? Yeah. No. Leonin.
Leonin. Okay.
Yeah.
Leonin rogue. All right, Leonin. For those of you who don't know, that's a lion humanoid, lion-based humanoid, and I love it. It's a Leonin.
Hey, it even has dark vision.
I love dark vision. You gotta have that. So from there, what you're gonna do? What I like to do, right? That's when I start worrying about stats, because now I've gotten to the point where I've gotten to me the big three that you're worried about is you're worried about race, class, and stats. After that, then you start getting into the nitty gritty or the really more fun part. But those are the things that help you decide how those work. For me, I've had a lot of situations where I thought, "Ooh, I want to build this," and then I rolled some stats and I went,
"Ooh, that ain't gonna work."
That doesn't really match that. So I've had to sort of tweak it. But that's also made things a lot of fun. So as far as building stats go, I know this is no dice, and this is blasphemous that I even have these around right now.
Oh, no. Use a dice app.
I will, but as far as stats go, typically you're going to use some of these right here. This is 46, right? When generating stats, the most common method that you'll see across the board is 46 drop the lowest. You're going to roll all four of them and drop one, whatever is the lowest number, and then add the others together to create one stat number. You'll do this in sets of 6. Some tables, like in my tables, often I'll do this, will allow you to roll multiple sets, but you don't get to pick and choose. You roll one set, and then that is complete. You roll another set, and then that is complete. You choose between the sets. Now, there are many other ability score generation methods, including point buy,
which is an old one.
Yeah.
Point has multiple levels too. There's low fantasy, mid fantasy, high fantasy, and those give you different amount of points to use for point buy. I usually, typically, if a player wants to use point buy, I usually make them go mid fantasy, which gives in the teens for points, high teens.
With point buy, I believe all your stats start at 8, but I could be wrong.
8 or 10. I think it depends on the edition. I think 3.5 was they started at 10.
Well, with the point buy method, all your stats start relatively low, and then you have a pool of points in which you can take and put one at a time in any. Well, sorry, dogs. Not necessarily one at a time, but you can take them and take from that pool of points and put them anywhere you'd like.
So 3.5 they started at 8.
Okay, yeah. So whether that's 8 or 10, you start at that low point and you take from your point pool and you put them wherever you want, with usually some limitations. If you've got 20 points to spend, most people are not going to be cool with you being like, yeah, I want a fighter with a 28 strength.
Well, also that's not how it works. With point buy, it scales. So as you go up further, they actually start costing more points to go to the next level up.
Absolutely.
So you can it's really hard to even get up to a 20 with the low or mid fantasy point buy. If you're playing high fantasy point buy, you're sitting with something like 28 or 32 points, stat points to use. So
Yeah, and that can be a great way to have an even spread, but also allow people to kind of to min max if they like, and make sure that everybody is in the same range. If you're a DM, that kind of matters to you. Sometimes you want everybody to be in the same range, and often I'll say I've seen DMs. It, even though almost all the DMs I play with do manual rolled, if you end up too far off from everybody else, they're just gonna be like, "Hey, dude, you can't be the weak link in this party. Reroll."
well, you've had nice DMs, and I've had DMs that sit there and go, "Hey, man, good luck."
I mean, that is also the case, but it just at the end of the day, I think a lot of the DMs, most DMs that I played with, realize that if you're not having fun, you become a disruption.
Oh yeah,
Um,
100%. But at the same time, having low stats can make fun RP.
Absolutely, and there are many people that believe that you should have a dump stat, include a dump stat. I know people that will literally, if they roll too good of a stats, they will drop one of their stats down because they want to. I'm going to take a 9 in a single stat. You know why? Because I want to be bad at something,
So I pulled up this fun little thing
including Caitlin.
yeah, from this website called Myth Weavers. They have point buy calculators for D&D 3.5, Pathfinder, and D&D 5e. All D&D across the board, all their point buy start at 8. Pathfinder starts at 10. I was mistaken.
Mm. Yeah, I thought they all started at 8. Um,
Well, except for Pathfinder, because it's
except
got to be
yes.
different.
Well, yeah. I thought all the D&D ones started at 8. All the Dungeons and
And
Dragons based
it
ones.
appears they do.
Um, so another point generation method there is going to be standard array, where you're just given a set of numbers and you choose where they are. Standard array, I think, starts at 11 and goes to 15 or 16. Obviously, I think it starts at 11 and goes to 16, and you just get to choose what you get a 16 in, and what you get a 15 in, and what you get a 14 in.
I think it's like a 16, 15, 2 14s, and a 10 and a 12? Or is it 114, 2 12s, and a 10?
I
I
honestly
think
don't
something
know.
like
Yeah,
that.
it's something. I most often don't use standard array. It is a great way to make sure everybody is completely balanced, but it also kind of robs you of a little bit of the fun of it. Part of the reason that you play Dungeons and Dragons is these clicky clacky math rocks or any
Ah,
tabletop role playing game.
5th edition. 15, 14, 13, 12, 10, 8.
Okay, so there you go. Uh, so that's a way to do it. I don't like to do it that way personally. There's also other roll methods. I've seen instead of 46 drop the lowest, you roll 2d6, add 6. Helps
Then
you
there's
helps you be a little bit higher on average.
then there's 3d6.
Then there's 3d6 straight. So if you get just a
3.
3, you get a 3. Which, don't get me wrong, you can roll a 3 with 46 drop the lowest, and I have. Um,
Same.
but hopefully your DM acknowledges that you should not have a 3 in any of your stats and tells you to re-roll that.
So my thing is, right? Ooh, sorry, been a long day. If you've got anything less than an 8, I try to have you re-roll as long as you get 8 or higher.
Yeah,
No matter
I'm
what
right
it
there
is,
with you. I'm right there with you.
because having a 3 in anything is literally detrimental to your character. I understand dump stats, I do,
But a
but not a
3 in,
3.
let's say your dump stats intelligence, a 3 means that you literally cannot speak in language. You can't use language.
Well, I think
Whoops.
it's 5 and under. You can't speak.
I think if it's above I think it's 3 to 5 you can speak, but only in grunts.
Oh.
You know.
Uh, uh, uh.
Yeah. It depends on edition and things like that, but and in certain editions it's extremely punishing. Like in certain editions, if you have under a certain like con, you're just dead. You know, under 5 you're just dead. You don't get to live after that. Like
Yeah.
It
Because at that point, once you start getting those lower values, when you're trying to roll health, if you've got
negative.
a D6 as a caster, and you're rolling a -5 or a -6, you're not making health. You could be rolling max stats every time, but you're losing health.
You're losing. Yeah. It's gonna hurt you. So
A -1, a -2, completely fathomable.
yeah, but anything of over that, it's just insane. Yeah, I definitely with my players, I tell them don't keep anything under an 8. Reroll that right out of the gate. But
I had one game I set up where I told everyone, "Oh yeah, all your scores are 20 across the board."
fuck.
But I made all the monsters that or higher, so
Yeah, well, oof.
when you've got a goblin that runs with all 20s across his board too.
That's insanity. You,
uh,
sir, like chaos, and I support it, but also that's insanity.
yeah, it was a short-lived like 3-run campaign we were just doing to kill some time, and yeah, no, things went weird.
Yeah. Go ahead and take your dice app and roll me out a set of stats for Bob.
Boop, 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 boop,
For Bob the
boop.
Leonin Rogue.
All right.
Just give them to me. Just give them to me straight. I don't even care. Actually, definitely give the highest one to dexterity because that's how it should.
14.
It's the highest.
No, to start.
Okay, 14.
12.
Whoa, that's not good for a
12.
rogue. Whoa.
10.
Why did you make this abomination?
12. 16.
Okay, so I'm gonna switch a couple of these because
Oh my
you want to
god.
build a character right. So let's. He can have a 14 there, and he can have a 12 in strength because it doesn't matter.
Switch the 14 in his charisma with intelligence.
Okay, you're right. You're right. So we'll give him 14. Oops.
104.
104.
That's a very smart rogue.
Okay, we'll build a rogue who's good at finding traps, which makes sense. So that's why he needs the intelligence. All right, so when you're building a character, in case you don't know, each of these scores will give you a modifier. So starting at 12, I believe, right? 12 is the first place you get a modifier, or is it 11?
12. It's odd numbers, even numbers.
Right.
12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, so on and so forth.
So starting at 12, you get a +1 for your 12. At 14, you get a +2. At 16, you get a +3. And we don't have any on the board, but at 18, you get a +4. And at 20, you get a +5. So let's do the +1 we get here, the +1 we get here, and that one doesn't give you a bonus. We'll put a 0 there just so we're aware. So that's real quick basics I wanted to cover there. Now, if you could look up the Leonin and just tell me where the bonuses would go.
Yeah, give me a second. I just lost it.
Yeah, okay.
+2 to con, +1 to strength.
So since he has a +2 to con, we take that 12 and turn it into a 14. And you turn that 1 into a 2. Then you get a +1 to strength. You turn that 13 to, or that 12 into a 13. And that +1 does not change because it only changes on the even numbers. All right. And then the proficiency bonus at level 1 is 2. Rogues are proficient in dexterity. I think only dexterity saves.
Intelligence. Dex intel.
Dex and intelligence. Okay, which means because I have a +3, I get a +5 here. Oh, you really can't see that at all.
No, unfortunately.
No. And because I have a +2, I get a +3 here. Can't see that at all. But just know that's what I did. And then I get to pick some of these.
Hold on. Explain for dexterity why they got the +5 to it. Just because you went a little faster that bit.
Sure. So when you're building a character, this is kind of the minutia of it, but
numbers, math.
Yeah, these are the numbers, the math, the minutia, the part that's not fun, and this isn't really what I wanted to focus too heavily on when I
but
meant to do this, but we're gonna go over it anyway. So you have proficiency in certain things. So this is your proficiency modifier right here. And based on your proficiency, you get to add that proficiency, not modifier, proficiency bonus. You get to add that bonus to things, right? So because our rogue is proficient in dexterity, you get to add dexterity saving throws. You get to add its dexterity bonus, which is the 3, and its proficiency bonus, because it's proficient, the +2, to make the +5 that would go there. Similarly, it's proficient in intelligence, so you get to add the +2 that we have here in the intelligence, plus the 2. Oops, I did that wrong then. That's actually going to be 4. Nope, I wrote 2 there. 4. And that'll be a +4 here. Now, I know you can't see that, but know that that's what's there.
And so, since that was the first one we did, I wanted that explanation on it. The rest we can just kind of.
Yeah. So, and then like, we can get into all of that stuff, but that stuff is not going to be as important right now as we get into why you would do that. The next part, right? Here's going to be your skills. We're going to talk about why you're going to do that. Here's going to be your hit die. Right now, you're only going to have you have a speed of 30, like because the Leonin have only a regular speed of 30. Here you add your dexterity bonus. Your dexterity bonus here's
hold
3.
on. Leonin have 35.
Oh, Leonin have a speed of 35, so they're a little bit faster. Current hit points at level 1, you get your full hit die, which is a D8, plus your con modifier, which is a 2, so that means he's got 10. And right now he's only got 1 hit die, which is 1 D8. All right, so that's basic minutia so that you can understand. If this is your first time ever making a character, here's some stuff I just wanted to go over with you. But what I really did want to talk about mostly in this was not the minutia of it, but I did want to discuss the fun of it, right? Which we've discussed, right? Picking your class and your your race. Now let's get into the incredibly nitty-gritty part for me, which is deciding what does it all mean, Basil? And now that we have everything picked, it's a lot easier, right? So we know, for instance, for our Leonin, we know what his race is. So we learn a bit of, for me, what I like to do is I like to read up on the Leonin and figure out what the book says about them. Are they loyal? Are they trustworthy? Are they vicious fighters typically? I want to know what typically they are. Because either I want to lean into that or explain why I'm going to lean away from it, right? Especially considering I'm a rogue, right? Maybe the Leonin are well known for being loyal and trustworthy, but I'm a rogue, so maybe I'm not loyal and trustworthy.
So
maybe I am.
The Leonin, noble and fierce, quick to quarrel.
See, noble and fierce, quick to quarrel. And I'm going to say right now,
and perfect for your rogues, prideful and self-reliant.
First of all, don't call me out in front of the stream. Fucking rude. Prideful and self-reliant. Perfect for you, you son of a gun.
No, for your. I specifically said for your rogues, sir.
That is true. My rogues are always prideful and self-reliant.
Which is not a bad feature when the rest of the party is not reliant.
So,
I'm looking at myself there.
So, I think that, using this as a jumping off point for conversation, I think that, and this is our rogue. This is your and my rogue. We're building this. So, for me, honorable and quick to fight. I think that the rogue that we would build here, that I would build with this, I think that
a bit more pulled back.
Yeah, more pulled back. I think pride would be there, sure. Yeah, why not? Have a little bit of pride. But I think he would wear that pride more as swagger than anything else.
Yeah, less to a fault.
Yeah, I think he'd wear that pride as swagger. I think he would really swagger around. But I also think he's more of the kind of guy who avoids a fight. That's what I would where I would want to take this, Because when you're building a character, you got to decide, who is this person? And again, I like to read about what they say about him and then decide if I want to go with that. He's a rogue. Why does he need to do every fight? He doesn't. Honorable. Well, I mean, a rogue's main thing is sneak attack, so maybe honorable is not exactly what he is. He
I
might be the
find
kind
that
of guy that tries to avoid the fight, and then when you decide you're not going to walk away, he sucker punches you.
funny that what's one of the big rogue tropes, right? It's their nobility, literal nobility.
Yeah,
So that whole pride and noble thing is great because it works. But at the same time,
I think the biggest rogue trope is urchins. I mean, I've even done it.
uh,
Make your rogue a street rat.
I was gonna say, yeah, it really comes down to fighter or a gladiator or fucking rogue when it really comes to street urchins,
Yeah,
right? Like the street brawlers, the arena fighters, because they fought the whole life, right?
right,
Or sneak thieves,
right.
rogue.
They had to be thieves their whole life. And the like I say, one of the cool things about rogue is that you don't have to be a thief. You could be an investigator, an inquisitive rogue.
Oh
So
yeah, like if we're looking at fifth edition, just the archetypes they have: arcane tricksters, assassin, inquisitive, mastermind, phantom, scout, soul knife, which is cool,
yeah,
swashbuckler, and then thief.
right. You could be a
But who wants to do
swashbuckler.
that nowadays? I'd rather be a swashbuckler. I'm gonna steal your boats, motherfucker.
Swashbuckler is fun. Just to touch on that,
Oh no way.
Swashbuckler is fun because Swashbuckler is one of the two roguish archetypes that allows you to expand how you do your sneak attack.
Oh yeah.
Because normally you can only do sneak attack as a rogue if you have caught your enemy by surprise, or if you have another person within 5 feet of you and the enemy, or which is played kind of by the DMs also as anytime you have advantage. It's not necessarily written exactly like that, but pretty well. If you have advantage on your roll, you are going to, and this is 5th edition specifically, you're going to get your sneak attack. But if you're the inquisitive rogue, you can get sneak attack at any time just based on a skill check. Or if you are the swashbuckler, you get to do your sneak attack anytime it is you with no other creatures within 5 feet of you other than your intended enemy.
Oh
So
yeah.
if you single out somebody, you get to use that sneak attack again and again and again. Oh no, my phone is gonna die. So discuss a little bit while I make sure my phone doesn't die. Talk a little bit about how you would build this rogue.
So if I'm building this Leonin rogue, um, and with them having decent overall decent stats, I would definitely fit him with a rapier. Oh no, a peek behind the curtain. I would definitely throw like a rapier on him for a weapon. Um, and I would set him up as a a two weapon user, right? Rapier and short sword. For skills you need stealth. As a rogue, you should always have stealth as a main skill, right? Always. But I would do stealth, deception, perception, and persuasion. Um, that way you can perceive things, you can convince people, you can deceive people, you can hide. Yeah, because like I said, deception, perception, persuasion, stealth. Um, get in there and really fuck some shit up with that. But those are the skills I would pick for the rogue. You good over there?
Absolutely, yes. I have no idea what
So
skills you were talking about you would pick, but I agree with you.
deception, perception, persuasion, and stealth.
Absolutely. Deception. Let's just do that real quick because it's fun. Deception, perception is this one. Persuasion,
Persuasion and stealth.
stealth.
Because I think stealth, no matter what type of rogue you build, I think stealth is a key skill that you should have.
Sure, yeah. Deception, we add our proficiency plus our charisma, which we don't have any. Uh, Perception, we add our proficiency plus our
Wisdom.
wisdom, which we have one of. So we would take 3 in that. Uh, our persuasion is plus our charisma, which we have 0 of, and stealth plus our dex, that's 5. And we can also, another thing a rogue does is they get expertise in a single, or it's either one or two of those things.
Two.
Two. So which ones do you think you'd take expertise in?
See, let's see here. Your fishing bonus is doubled. I would do stealth.
Double the proficiency bonus is 4 plus the 3, which is 7.
And let's make them extra keen of eye. Let's do perception.
Perception. All right, so it was 3, but now it's 5. Fantastic.
Make it so he can see things better.
Sure, he can see things better. So I mean, definitely when I'm choosing my skills, what I like to do is I really want to base that on what I think that character's experiences have led it to be. If I build a rogue who's spent his time skulking in the shadows because he was an urchin and he needed to get food and stuff like that, yeah, his stealth's going to be high. But I could also build a rogue who spent a lot of time lying in bars to get drinks and food and saying he was one thing and telling somebody else, telling the barkeep that somebody else is paying for his tab. And in that situation, he's going to have a high deception. When building a character, I really want to take into account what I think I want to do with the character, where I think that came from. You know?
Oh yeah, 100%. But at the same time, I mean that plays into the background. Are you using a standard background that the game wants to push for you? Because that could also boost your things.
Sure, it could.
That
Yes.
that brings a whole new flavor text into how you could build your character on top of that.
Absolutely. And I think that I don't usually focus on background as much as I should, but most editions are using some version of background these days anyway, and so I
Well,
should really keep it.
it is the background is sometimes too limiting. Because sometimes I don't always want to build a character that was a street urchin. Sometimes I want to build a character that maybe actually had parents but just liked playing out with the street kids kind of thing. He
Sure.
wasn't a street urchin, he was just a fucking punk.
Sure. Yeah,
And
absolutely.
they don't really have a background for that. At least not from what I've seen. They might have something similar I haven't seen, but it's playing with backgrounds can be limiting, but as a new player, they can also help bring in your focus on how you can build a background yourself.
Absolutely. Backgrounds can be both limiting and inspiring, without question. Using that background as an element for something to build off of is great. I think I personally I do a lot of when I'm building a character, I start developing this idea based on his stats, right? And like looking at the not just on based on his class and his race and his stats. Those two things start mulling around in my head. Okay, so he's a Leonin, so typically his race, so typically everybody else in his culture is going to be like this, but I don't know if I want him to be like that. So I think I'm going to like downplay some of those elements and upplay some of the other ones. He's got high dex but not high strength, but they all get a strength bonus. So he's probably weaker than some of the other Leonins he may know if he even grew up in the Leonin culture. Maybe he didn't. Let's decide where let's talk to my DM. It's a big part of my character creation. Let's talk to my DM about where he came from. Where does he want me to start? Does he think I could have started with the either Leonin or I wouldn't? You know, I've made characters who like I made a lizard man or a lizard folk uh, priest one time who just had the most garbage stats, right? And lizard folk are well known for being big, tough, and strong. And boy, he was not those things. So the way I ended up playing him is that he kind of had a complex about it. He knew he wasn't big, tough, and strong like everyone else. He was big. He was a little bit tough. He wasn't that strong, but he still did his best. And these are the kind of things that go into it. Now, I'm not going to tell you that you're going to have your character completely fleshed out by the time you hit your first session. You won't. Even if you
No.
feel like you do, you're wrong. Every time. Every time. All of the players that I've ever known, they they were never, no matter how much they thought they had it worked out, never prepared for what happened, what stepped off the page of what they wrote on their character sheet and the backstory they wrote and all that stuff. They were never prepared for what stepped off the page when they actually started playing it. Because there's always going to be some wrench that is thrown into that plan to a certain extent, some extra element that you didn't see coming, but doesn't detract from overall what you're trying to make. And honestly, I think that's one of my favorite parts about building a character. Is that character gets its own legs at a certain stage, and becomes its own thing.
And as veteran players, I think we kind of get into our character role a little bit faster. Um, I've seen you within first session pigeonhole your character perfect to the point where you liked it. I should say personality wise, not pigeonhole.
Right.
Um, and then I've seen you like building Jakar. Jakar took to get him where I think you finally got his role going. I think it took you at least 6-7 sessions.
It took me a little while for that one. Yeah, and that because he was one of my earlier characters. And I didn't really know exactly what I was doing, definitely. And some as I say, you don't always this whole character building thing is to kind of go over the mechanics of it, but also go over the the art of it, right? The fun of it. And when I was building those first characters, I didn't know. I wasn't ready. I had some ideas. And really that's all you need. Go into each session with ideas. And
Ideas and a pencil and pad and just go at it.
and have that,
Just
yes.
just start writing shit down.
Write down everything that you think matters at that point. I have a bunch of books. I talked to this guy 7 times today. Or I talked to this guy the most. This NPC the most. This PC the most.
I use this accent the most. I did this nervous tick the most. I'm always playing with this. Um, it's I don't even know why. It's
Yeah,
just
you
fun to
just
play
do it.
with.
Yeah. Right?
And it's like
And
you
those are
can
the elements you can add to your role play even, right? And those are the things that take that character and make it something both memorable to you and the people you're playing with, which is not necessarily what you're trying to do. You're not necessarily trying to impress your friends, but what you are trying to do is make this character feel real, or at least that's what I'm trying to do. Maybe that's not what you're trying to do. If the way you like to play your tabletop role playing is you're just waiting to roll some dice, that's okay if that's what your table likes. But if you're sitting at my table and you're not willing to make a real character that feels real, then I'm going to either push you into it or push you away. And that's you got to know your table. You got to know whose table you're sitting at and who you're sitting at it with. Because if you guys don't get along in the first place, it doesn't matter what character you create. You
yeah,
can make the best character in the world.
there's too many stories out there where just one bad player has ruined a whole table.
Yeah. And sometimes as a DM or even as another player, you got to be willing to bridge that conversation of being like, "Hey, are you having fun here? Are you the right fit for this?" And talking to your DM and being like, if you're a player, talking to your DM and being like, "This person is making it unfun for me." Because it's a game. It's meant to be a good time. And don't let anybody take that good time away from you. So if you're the odd man out and you're not having a good time, just walk away. Find another group.
There will always be another group.
They're out there.
Always will be.
In the age of the internet, you'll find them everywhere. They're
I'm
there.
just with all the dating apps we have, we need one just for D&D groups.
D&D group apps. I keep seeing the memes, and I'm surprised nobody's made one yet.
No,
Take
we're
care
all a
for
bunch of
D&D.
nerds, so no one wants to take that first step.
Come on, nerds are the people who make these things, though. Nerds are the programmers. Anyways, so I mean, yeah, when I'm building a character, back to the start of this whole thing. When I'm building a character, I'm looking at all these things, right?
Well,
personally.
you've also spent days just reading through races before you even had a class. You were talking to me for 4 or 5 days just on different races. Hey,
Yeah,
is
and
this
that's
there?
recent. That's
This
not
yeah, that was recent
that's
too.
not like when I first started. That is like 2 months ago. 2 months
Yeah.
ago, I spent weeks reading through races. Hey, you gonna approve this race? What do you think of that if I do it? Is this cool? What are your thoughts? You know,
I mean,
it
and there's some things we just tweak just to fit the world.
sure.
Also, that's one thing. If there's certain aspects about a race that you think should be slightly tweaked, work with your DM. Talk
Work.
to your
Oh
DM.
yes, yes, absolutely. And like you know, it's. I think that is absolutely the most important part of character building. If you are a PC at a table, if you're building a character as an NPC that you are a DM making, you don't have to worry about this. You make all the rules. Guess what? The freedom is in your hands. Do what you want. But if you are a PC at a table, one of the things that I think people always forget, as dumb as it is run things by your DM. Because I've seen so many people be like, so I want to make this misunderstood goblin who's been under the foot of the the elf patriarchy for too long, and then the DM goes, goblins are the most common race in my world and they are not under anybody's foot. And you go, but I wrote it in my backstory already. You shouldn't have done that, dude. Talk to your DM, dude. Figure out what his world is like, what their world is like, his, her, whoever. Uh, Figure out what their world is like, because
And I'll tell you,
that's
if
where
you
you're
get
going.
you get a DM talking about the world, you're gonna find out some weird shit.
Yeah, you might find out more than you should, but that's okay. It'll be fine.
Or you might be like me, like I'm gonna tell you this thing because I want you to try to find it.
Yeah, absolutely. I do that too. Sometimes, you know. Or oh, you want to make that kind of character? Cool. I'm gonna give you a little bit more than I give everybody else
Bro,
because
you're
you
making me
fit
build a
it.
whole religion because I chose cleric.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And like that's the thing, right? Sometimes your DM's gonna be like, "Hey, oh, you want to do this? Well, then I think you can take on this also. Whether that's just more information or building stuff out. Hey, you're mad that I made you build out a whole religion?
Oh God, no.
Like,
I'm not mad.
not mad, but you're over here talking about how I made you build a whole religion. Jay just made me build a whole race.
Oh yeah, I remember those talks. Yeah, you also made me build you a whole planar book. That was fun.
Yeah, that was as a player though, and you started it. So
I still blame you. It's your fault. It's your fault. I blame you.
you could have not, but you didn't not. You did.
Yeah, you didn't. You did not either. You didn't not.
Why would I not? Those spells were kicking ass.
Yeah, dude, that
I used
portal
one of
door
those
was
spells to
great.
cut a giant worm in half. And that was not its intended use. Anyways,
God no, but
uh,
that's all flavor.
you know,
All
have
right,
fun with it.
so that's kind of steer ourselves back.
Yeah, steering ourselves back to creating a character. So
So I think we're pretty
we're
well on the base.
we're pretty good
I wouldn't
here.
worry about equipment on
Let's say
this one.
let's say background is noble because we talked about their nobility. We'll see that's a little fun. That says
Y-
noble, and
Yeah,
that's
let's
wrong.
say Sir Nubel.
That's noble. Noble? How do I spell noble? It's like that.
Noble.
Is it LE?
Le.
Whatever. I don't know. Player name, but
uh, boot boutte.
alignment. Okay, so actually we are gonna touch on alignment real quick. So
Ooh, you
alignment
should
is
bring
another
up an
one of those
alignment charts.
another one of those things that in most games is very important. And I say most because one of the kind of growing ideals among DMs these days. Pardon me. Sorry, I had a tool in the chamber there, and I had to get rid of both of them.
Dude, muffle it.
uh, one of the growing ideas among DMs these days is that alignment is not as important as it once was. In older editions, alignment was a very important part of how you played, because not only could you only take certain alignments with certain things, but it dictated so much that if you were to go against it, there would be pretty harsh cost on the part of your character. Everything from a ranger happening to be a good alignment, and if you went against that, you just stopped being a ranger.
Yeah, like for Paladin, if you have to be for a long time, Paladins were only lawful good.
Right. Yeah.
And if you stopped being lawful good, you completely lost all your Paladin powers.
Right. And you
All
don't
of them.
just get to respec. You
Nope,
lost it.
you're
You
fucked.
might as well be a level 1 of something else now. And that, like I said, in older
So
editions,
at
they
that
were
point,
very,
you're just a level 1 fighter.
yeah. In older editions, they were very punishing. But in newer editions, fifth edition is very nice to its players, and it gives sort of those it gives those keys to the DM where it says you kind of make these decisions, but we're not writing it in the rules. Same thing with like the Nat 1, which they wrote out of the rules and stuff like that. Uh, but no matter what, no matter if your DM considers it very important or thinks of it just as some loose guideline, I think when you're creating a character, it is a really solid waypoint for the direction in which you think they want to go. Something that can help you decide the personality that you're going to give this character. Because every time you step in the role of this character, it's going to have a certain personality. It's going to make certain decisions. And a uh, giving it a alignment will help you understand those choices a little better, or help you make those choices a little better.
And every now and then you'll find these different like alignment tests. And I found this entertaining one right here. It's like 30 some odd questions to help you figure out the alignment of your characters. Um, and it's kind of cool, not gonna lie.
Yeah.
So if you aren't sure, you could always go on you Google.
Right. Google that and do whatever you come up with, because obviously the easiest thing for you to portray is something that you are. So if you're the kind of person that is a little chaotic and a little self-centered, maybe go with chaotic neutral. If you have really strong morals and you think that laws are important, go with lawful good. If you think the world should just burn, pick an evil alignment. But talk to your DM before you choose an evil alignment, because most DMs in most games are going to have some alignment restriction. I think it's silly. Let people be whatever they want to be.
So
But
I
I'm an
think what
agent
it
of
comes
chaos.
so what I think comes down to, at least for me, right, is running games where I kind of let the players run free with the alignment. Is I love to see how it comes up in RP.
Yes. How are you gonna manage that? How are you gonna hide it if you need to hide it? Or are you going to hide it?
And are you gonna do it in such a way of not hiding it that you convince the rest of the party to follow?
And who won't be convinced?
Oh
All of
yeah, 100%.
all of these things are really fun points that you can play off of with just the alignment in and of itself. Like for this guy, I think he's a noble, he's a rogue. I think that we'll go with what is probably the most common alignment on the board.
CG.
We're gonna go with the old CN chaotic neutral.
Yeah, a little more self-centered.
Noble, rogue. I think he's gonna be a little bit more self-centered. He likes things probably. And as you can see how my brain works already, right? We're building this character fun, for nothing. I'm never going to use this rogue for anything. But I'm already going, I think he's a little self-centered. Noble rogue. I think I'm already taking these elements, these pieces. He's dexterous. He's not that charismatic. So I don't see him as the kind of guy who does a lot of lying or anything like that, a lot of convincing. He's the kind of guy who
Lets people perceive and plays that perception.
sure, I think he probably doesn't play any roles very well at all, right? He's not good at deceiving. I think he kind of tries to stay in the back. He probably stands out. So he's worked hard on like not standing out, which is why his stealth is so high. He doesn't like standing out. Even as a noble, right? Until he wants to. He wants to be seen only when he wants to be seen, right? These are the types of things that I say to myself and that I learn about the character that I'm building as I'm building it. And everybody's different. Everybody has their own way. But I'm telling you how I do it, so that maybe it'll help you figure out how you do it. What about you, Ulvi?
I usually build CN around my class, my alignment through class,
Sure.
and
What alignment do you go with Rogue? Someone who could be anything.
so generally my rogues are CE, chaotic evil. Very typical, very typical. So actually, believe it or not, my favorite rogue I ever built, the second favorite I should say, because Balin, who's CE, is my favorite rogue. My second favorite rogue is actually Lawful Good.
See?
That was hard though, to do that and not fall into the rogue tropes was so hard and so fun.
I think most of my rogues end up being chaotic neutral because I think one of the key things about being a rogue, and I will say that this changes a lot with subclass, especially in later editions, but I started in second edition. So to me, a rogue is a thief. And to me, a thief, he wants things. Why? Because he wants it. There is no reason. To me, the perfect mentality for a rogue is Rocket Raccoon. But what if I want it more than they do?
You really got his leg? I don't need it. I just wanted it.
I just thought it'd be funny.
I got a spare eyeball for you. You should have watched that first. Where'd you get the fucking eyeball? Don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it. Exactly. I think to me, that's what quintessential rogue is. But again, with subclasses now, and for a little while, you could really be anything. You want to be a detective? You know what makes the best detective? A rogue. You want to be a deckhand? A pirate? Makes a good, what makes a good pirate? A rogue. You want to make somebody that instills the fear of death in people?
Oh, assassin.
Or the gravekeeper
Paladin?
rogue.
I don't know, man. I think paladins.
Paladins also do that. Smite is terrifying. Smite in 5th edition is absolutely terrifying because you can declare it at any point.
I got a quick tangent. If you guys can, there's a story about this guy put out on All Things D&D. He's telling a story about someone that sent him about how the paladins smite only worked on those who were fearful, not evil. Oh yeah, no, it's a great story. Go find it. I'm not going to explain the rest of it.
Yeah,
because it's killer.
That's like and I'm gonna make a quick comparison real quick, and then we'll move on. That's a lot like if you've ever watched Seven Deadly Sins. There was the sin who you couldn't attack if you hated him.
Oh
Right?
yeah,
You couldn't touch him if you hated him, and he wanted you to hate him. But my favorite part about that is the absolute paladin that is Escanor. As he approaches,
to a T.
and he says, How can you even come near me? You should hate me. And he says, hate.
I
All
pity
I
you.
feel for you is pity.
Oh yeah,
And
no,
then
that
he
whole
knocks
scene.
his goddamn block off. And that's great. That's what a paladin is to me.
Oh yeah,
That
no,
is
Escanor
quintessential.
is to a tee up a paladin.
He's a paladin.
He's a sun. Well, he's a sun worshipping paladin.
Yes.
Uh,
Praise the sun.
praise the sun. No, Escanor is a paladin to a T,
Yeah.
and they wrote him so well into it.
Yeah, that's what he's supposed to be. So, as you're developing this character and you've got all your stuff down, I will go over some of these things just to finish out because we've been on for almost 2 hours at this stage, or for over 2 hours at this stage.
Yeah.
So let's just go over some of these other quick things right here. This box, I know you can't read it, but I'm going to explain it to you. This box right here is for personality traits. So if you're playing 5th edition D&D, they actually give you a list of personality traits that you can roll on and kind of just pick one of those. But you don't have to use that. That's just a hey if you want to. So this is a great place to write whatever you come up with for the personality traits, whether that's you rolled them or you decided you're going to make this a part of your character. Same thing with ideals, which is the one right below it. You can kind of see it. I have to move the mouse really fast. And then under here is bonds, right? Same thing. Ideals are that should be pretty self-explanatory. What are the ideals that your character has? Bonds are going to be like, do you have family? Do you have friends? Do you have an uncle? Do you have a mentor? Those are important parts of building a character and things that you want to go over with your DM, because there's nothing better for a DM than having those bonds to be able to use in one way, shape, or form. Being a DM myself and having played a lot of games, every time I've given my DMs some bonds to play with, they absolutely do, and the way they use it is the way they use them can be varied. Everything from leveraging some response out of you, which may or may not work depending on your character and how they read your character, or having something to motivate you moving forward in a positive way, not like a leveraging sort of way. You know, having a living family could be something that makes you go, I can't, my life's become too dangerous. I've got to leave the city. You know, having a mentor that is being held prisoner is a good reason to go after that, go fight that big bad. So bonds can be great for that. And then of course you have flaws, right? Which can be something like this 10 in charisma down here, or it could be something like fears that you have, or inabilities. You can just throw that in there because not every character shouldn't be perfect.
No,
You
no,
should
no, no, no.
you should have something about them that's not good enough in some way, shape, or form. Not right. Some sort of type of flaw, some type of hiccup in the character. You know, you want to make this perfect paladin, except for this perfect paladin really likes playing cards. So he has to stay away from it. He knows he should. Really.
But every now and then, man, he gets just a little too much ale, and his rogue buddy says, "Hey, man, you know we could win a few hands." The paladin starts going,
We could win
"Yeah,
a few hands, couldn't we?
yeah, we could." Yeah, like having a character that is realistic, I think, brings you more into the game.
Right. Having
Maybe not
flaws.
necessarily stat wise, right? Like,
Right. Having flaws makes your character more realistic, and having it more realistic brings you deeper into the game. And it is again one of those things that your DM can use.
that
All
way,
of
when
these
I kill
things.
your character and you cry, you can feel like you want to make another one and play again to get revenge.
Yeah, absolutely. So all of
Uh,
these, like I said, your personality traits, your ideals, your bonds, your flaws, all of those are things that you can roll on in 5th edition itself, but you can also just decide those and fill that out in there. And that's great because every once in a while you're going to want to show your DM your character sheet so they can reapprise themselves, or even give them a copy so they can reapprise themselves with what's going on with you. And having that stuff filled out is just more stuff to help them and help you. And if you're a DM, and this doesn't apply because you're not making a character sheet most likely for your NPC, but always consider those things as well, because even though it's stuff that you're going to use, you want to give yourself as many options as you can. What do we got here? Oh, here we have weapons, which we don't have any.
Yeah.
No, these are attacks. Attacks, which we don't have any. This is where you put your weapons and such. We're not going to put anything, but here we would put like your. Let's say you have a. Actually, I'll put like you have a short sword, and then you might also put your sneak attack so that you have.
See, I always put the sneak attacks under something else. Personally, right? I always kept that as weapons, material, actual physical weapons, short
Right.
sword, long sword, bow,
Right.
and
You
then
could also put your sneak
underneath
attack
that,
over here.
yeah. And that's the thing is, I would either put sneak attack to the side or in the blank space underneath it, where it's just the big ass box.
Sure. Yeah. Absolutely. So you can put whatever you want there, and then you're. It's gonna have a 1d6, and then your sneak attack is gonna give you another 1d6. And this is all just a for instance sort of stuff. Here is where you're gonna do your death saves, whether you have them or you don't. Right, that's when you go down. Here's your armor class. Let's put the armor class as 14 because most likely that's what you would end up having as a rogue, because you'd have leather armor. Here is your proficiencies in languages. He's probably gonna know Common and Leonin, and he's gonna have proficiency in thieves tools. I don't know if I spelled thieves right, but who cares?
I before E,
Except after C
except for neighbors
and way.
and like 47,000 other words, but
Yes, here's where you'd put your gold, your copper, all this stuff. This is your equipment. It's kind of a little shitty area for equipment in this character sheet, but it's okay. You should always have a blank notebook when you're making a character anyway. Passive perception is just going to be 10 plus your plus your wisdom, plus if you're proficient. So if you are proficient, which we are proficient, it's going to be 12 because we don't have any wisdom. Oh no, it's going to be 13 because we have a little bit of wisdom. Let's see what else we got here. This is a second page so they give you all that stuff so that you can do that, like your character name, which we already decided was Bob. That's Boob. Bob.
I know it's on your brain, sir.
Boobs. Age. Age is going to be different depending on your race, but definitely something to consider when you're building a character. Think about age. Do you want an older than normal character? What does your DM want you to do? These are important things to factor in. So I don't know how old a Leonin could be, but let's say
they age at the same rate as humans.
Cool. He's 25 for whatever reason. Not as young as some games start. They're probably as tall as normal people. Let's say he's 6'3", not 63. 6 foot 3 inches. Weight. Oh gosh.
So Leonins stand above 6 feet and up to over 7 feet. Their weight is 180 pounds plus 2d6 times your size modifier, which is medium is 0. So it's just 180 plus 2d6 for weight.
Okay, 180 plus 2d6. Let's say that's 10, so 170. Sorry, 190. Eyes, I don't know, fucking yellow.
Oh no, I'm sorry. The size modifier is 2d10. So it's 2d6 times 2d10 plus 180. What the hell?
That's wild. Anyways,
that's huge.
Skin, furry. Hair, blonde?
Fluffy. Just fluffy.
We're just trying to rush our way through this. Character's appearance. This box is great. Just when you make a character, decide how to describe him. So what I would put here, honestly, if you were new and you didn't really know exactly what you're doing, or even just to like save time, put your character description. like in actual words, how you would describe them. Because if you just put like he's got clothes and or just put like clothes, traveler's clothes and looks like a Leonin, like that's not good enough. Decide, does he look like Scar from Lion King or does he look like Mufasa? Figure that out. Ours, of course, has to look like Scar's son, whatever
The
his name
crazy
was.
lion.
Whatever his name was, in the sequels that not a lot of people watched, that's what he's got to look like. So that's what I would
Mm.
describe here. I'd say looks like Scar's son. You know what I'm saying? Can I get in there? I can't. I'm not even bothered. We're already so far into this thing.
Because that, believe it or not, is a portrait. Technically, they want you to try to draw your character in
Oh,
that
draw your
box.
character if you can, but
Don't
on
worry
your
about
own.
it if you can.
Yeah, don't worry about it. If you can't, don't worry about it. Allies and organizations. That's stuff that you should already know, right?
Well, so allies and organizations, I always have people leave blank because they build those relationships during the course of the game.
Right.
That's
Well,
how
and
I
that's
play
what
it.
that's what I was getting to is you already know if you have any organizations you already belong to, right? If you have a church, you have a sect, something like that, that you would put there. But everything else, leave that blank, baby. Wait till it comes up. Don't even put your party's name there. You don't know they're your allies yet. Fuck
It's
those
not
guys.
wrong. It's not wrong.
Uh,
What are they? What have they done for me? I've been picking all their locks, picking all the treasure. They don't fucking do shit for me. What? They keep a skeleton off my back. Bitch couldn't even hit me if it tried.
exactly. Fuck that guy. Character backstory. My advice: every time you're making a character, write a backstory. Every single time. I don't care if that
Even if it
backstory is
takes you a bit of time.
I don't care if that backstory is one paragraph. I don't care if that backstory is 10 pages. But if it's 10 pages, remember whatever level you're starting at. If you're at a level 1, if you're making a level 1 character and you give me a 10-page backstory, you better not have told me about all of the killing and pillaging and murdering he's done. Because I promise you, I'm going to just like cross out 5 of those pages and be like, you didn't do
Yeah.
none of that shit.
Don't tell me that you were using power word kill.
Right. You didn't escape from a prison, from the most secure prison in the
No,
country.
you escaped from your local sheriff's to sell house.
Right. You know what I'm saying? Like, you keep in mind what level you were supposed to
100%.
start at, because if you write that crazy backstory, you just can't support it. No level 1 character fights off an army.
So my favorite thing, my favorite thing, and I've done this a few times, is you have a character who always tells that type of backstory, but in truth, no one believes him because the whole truth, honestly, is his parents just sent him away for the summer and he got lost.
Yeah, if you have a character that lies about their backstory, I love that. But keep in mind that you should be prepared to roll deception
Oh
every
yeah.
time. Because me as a DM, some DMs are going to be nice and they're only going to wait until somebody else questions it to make you roll deception. But me,
So I would
I'm going to make
say
you roll deception every time.
100%. But I would say for my games, depend on so it really depends on the setting of the game for me. Uh, but I would generally say I would make it depending on how outrageous the story is, right? The more outrageous it is, I'm gonna be like, roll deception.
Yeah.
Otherwise, if they roll deception and pass it with the party the first time, I'm not gonna make
Oh,
them
they
for
don't.
the
Yeah.
party listening. They don't get to roll it again
No.
until one of them goes, wait a minute, he didn't say that part the first time. That part's different. If they catch on to like, hey, then
Yeah.
they got to reroll. But I'm making fucking NPCs roll against them every fucking time.
Right. Every time. Every time. For sure. Specifically if they're like very insightful, if they can see through that stuff. So here's additional features and traits. Trust me, you're going to need that additional space as you level that character up
And
because you
then
never
some.
know. Yeah. Again, buy a notebook. Buy a brand new notebook. Look at this. This is my brand new for my new podcast character notebook. This is my only has my DM stuff in it notebook. I have more. I have more notebooks. Rest assured. I'm not gonna dig in my stuff to get them right now. But for all of us who've been playing for a while, almost every character has its own notebook. Granted, sometimes you're like, uh-oh, new character on the fly. Well, just flip this notebook backwards. But
But then you buy a new notebook, you take those pages and you copy them over, or you pull them out and set them in.
exactly. But you'll need this additional features and traits as you level up. Trust me. Treasure, yeah, you'll need that too. Depending if for our rogue, he'll need it. The way that me and Ulvin play, he'll need it. Keep track of your treasure. Keep track of your gold, because your DM is not gonna for you.
No, and it's not his job to. Don't
Not.
expect him to
Do not expect
at
him
all.
to. I'm very
They.
using a lot of he, but who knows who it'll be. They might remember what they gave out, but they
And
won't
that's it.
remember who has it.
Hmm. Yeah, most DMs might track that.
I mean, yeah, for real. I think a lot of DMs will track what they gave out, but just not who they gave it to. And this is a spell page, which you will most likely need more than this if you have a caster. But for our rogue, throw it away. Just
Yeah,
throw that spell
100%.
page away. If you have a caster, this is where they go. They're divided into levels, right? 0 is cantrips, then you got first level spells, so on and so forth. And you got little check marks beside it if you casted it. And let me tell you that doing that on paper, that page is going to have so many erase marks on it.
Oh yeah.
Print about 15 of these if you make a caster, because you'll need more of them.
God, I wish
It'll
that
be
was
a
a
mess.
joke.
It'll
I
be an
wish that was a
absolute
joke.
mess. So I mean, that's the basics of building a character. That's the tips and tricks that we can give you about how we do it, what we think is important. A bit of a breakdown uh, on all the classes. We're not giving a racial breakdown, but maybe one day we'll go into races of D&D. I'll put it on the
So
list.
if we're doing a races of D&D thing, that's going to be a literal multi-part series, and we're just going to pull up A and go down.
Yeah.
I'm not fucking, and that's going to be once a month. We might do a racial episode.
Yeah.
Because that the races, as much as I love reading through them and going through them, they're so expansive.
Yeah, I mean, we might just do like maybe even like core races, and then
Well,
like
yeah, and that's the thing, right? Are we doing core races, base races, advanced player guide races? Are we doing monster races or not? Like,
right. Or if you're doing 5th edition, it's a little bit easier because you just do base races, then each set of races that are in each different book, which is only about 2 or 3 at a time most of the time. So that's not too difficult. But anyways, we're not going to get too heavily into that. We didn't today. We're not going to today. I hope for those of you who stuck around for most of this, that we were able to give you some information that was great, and you enjoyed our ramblings. We did. I guess I should have opened that up more for questions, but I assumed if you had questions, you'd ask them. Know that you always can here at No Dice. We try very hard to watch the
no,
chat.
I don't like questions.
We try very hard to watch the chat and try to have fun with you as the viewer. And definitely tune in next week for Wacko Mundo.
And
And
end times.
end times, right? Next week we're gonna have end times on Monday, Wacko Mundo next Wednesday, and we'll have our next No Dice the Wednesday preceding, where I don't know, maybe we'll do races. Just kidding. We'll see.
No,
No,
please
we're probably gonna actually talk about character voice next time, since that feels like a good back to back.
Ooh, we gotta get Jay in.
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna talk to him. We'll see who we can get involved with that. But if you haven't watched, please watch. I should still be putting these on YouTube. I don't know if we have been, but
We haven't.
Yeah, because I don't know if it's on us or if Jay's still doing it. So
It's probably on us now.
probably. My bad. I'm gonna go back to putting these on YouTube. So look out for this on YouTube, or if you're already watching it on YouTube, thank you for watching. Again, end times Monday. Actually, let's move from today. Look out for us Sunday on Sunday Fun Day. Then Monday we're gonna do end times Ulven stream. Next Wednesday we'll be doing another Wacko Mundo, and then we'll start our whole work week over again here on the Torch the Tavern Twitch. If you like D&D, you like role playing, I hope you come in and say hi. With all that being said, oh, and our podcast. Please go check out our podcast. We just started our second campaign. We're literally like 3 episodes in, 2 or 3 episodes. Oh gosh,
Oh, I'm behind.
yeah, I think we're on episode 2 now. So go listen. We release those interchanging Wednesdays. These Wednesdays, every Wednesday that there's a No Dice, it's released actually. So
Oh, so this should be episode 3, right?
I believe so. Anyways, I'm bad, but I have fun with it.
But
And I
that's
hope
why
you
we
do
like
too.
you.
So, as always, to round it out, thank you for watching here at Torchlit Tavern and Tell Good Stories.